The shrimp scampi glistened on my plate, innocent and deadly. I stared at it, my throat already starting to close up, while my mother-in-law, Evelyn, beamed from across the table with what anyone else might mistake for genuine warmth. My name is Victoria, and I was about to find out just how far a mother would go to keep her son. I specifically asked about Shellfish, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. The first hints of panic crept in as I felt the familiar tingle on my lips. You promised me it was safe. Ryan's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. Mom, you knew about Victoria's allergy. We've talked about this dozens of times. Evelyn's perfectly manicured fingers fluttered to her chest. Oh dear, did I forget? I could have sworn you said it was just a mild sensitivity. You've been so particular about everything since the pregnancy. The EpiPen. Where was my damn EpiPen? I fumbled through my purse, the room starting to spin. The baby kicked, as if sensing my distress. It's never been mild, Ryan snapped, pushing back from the table. Where's your EpiPen, Vic? Martin, my father-in-law, watched the scene unfold with quiet horror from his end of the table. Nathan, Ryan's brother, seemed more interested in his wine glass than the fact that I was struggling to breathe. I must have left it in the car, I wheezed. Stupid mistake. Never trust Evelyn's cooking. How many times had Claire warned me? I'll get it, Ryan said, already halfway to the door. Really, Victoria, Evelyn sighed, dabbing her lips with a napkin. Perhaps if you weren't so anxious all the time, these things wouldn't happen. Stress isn't good for the baby. The room tilted sideways. My hands clutched the edge of the table, knuckles white. Through the growing fog, I caught the slight upturn of Evelyn's lips, that flash of satisfaction in her eyes, before concern masked it. Someone call an ambulance, Martin finally spoke up, his voice cutting through the chaos. I felt hands guiding me to the floor, heard Ryan's panicked return, the sharp sting of the EpiPen in my thigh. As the medication fought against my closing airways, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity. This wasn't a mistake. The next few hours passed in a blur of emergency room lights and monitors. Ryan never left my side, his face etched with worry and something else. Doubt, maybe, or the first cracks in his unwavering defense of his mother. The baby's fine, the doctor assured us for the third time. But Mrs. Henderson, you need to be more careful. With your severity of allergies, even cross-contamination could be fatal. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the dinner scene. The way Evelyn had insisted on serving me herself, how she'd watched, waiting, as I lifted that first forkful. I swear, Vic, I'll talk to her, Ryan said once we were alone. This can't happen again. I turned to look at him, really look at him, wondering if he could see what I already knew. It wasn't an accident. Don't say that. Mom would never, wouldn't she? My hand rested on my swollen belly, protective. Think about it, Ryan. She's never accepted me, and now there's a baby coming. A baby that will take even more of your attention away from her. He shook his head, but I saw the doubt in his eyes deepen. That's crazy. She's not capable of murder. The word hung between us like poison. Maybe not, but she's definitely capable of sending a message. The hospital room fell silent except for the steady beep of monitors. Outside, a nurse walked past, her shoes squeaking on the linoleum floor. Ryan's phone buzzed, probably Evelyn, checking to see if her plan had worked. I won't let her hurt you again, he finally said, but we both knew it wasn't that simple. I closed my eyes, exhausted but mind-racing. If Evelyn wanted a war, she'd get one, but this time I'd be ready. This time, I'd make sure she understood exactly what it meant to mess with a mother protecting her child. 3 days after the dinner incident, I sat in Claire's kitchen, watching her pace with the kind of righteous anger only best friends can muster. The afternoon sun caught the silver highlights in her dark hair as she moved, making her look like she was crackling with electricity. She tried to kill you, Claire said for the third time, slamming her coffee mug down. And Ryan still making excuses? I traced the rim of my own mug, remembering the conversation with my husband that morning. He says we need to give her another chance, that she's been under stress lately. Stress? Claire's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. I've treated patients under stress. They take up yoga, not attempted murder. My phone buzzed. Another message from Evelyn. Just checking on my favorite daughter-in-law. Those pregnancy hormones can make anyone overreact. Let's have tea tomorrow and talk. I showed Claire the message. Her eyes narrowed as she read it, professional assessment mixing with personal fury. Classic gaslighting. She's trying to make you doubt yourself. It's working on Ryan, I admitted. This morning, he suggested maybe I did overreact. That may be cross-contamination. Stop. Claire grabbed my hands across the table. You know what cross-contamination looks like. You've lived with this allergy your whole life. Trust your instincts. The baby kicked, as if agreeing. I pressed a hand to my stomach, remembering the fear in the emergency room, not just for myself, but for my child. Ryan's coming to the next ultrasound. Evelyn offered to come too. Absolutely not. That's what I said, but Ryan thinks it would help us bond. Claire's phone chimed, her reminder for her hospital shift. As she gathered her things, she fixed me with the same look she probably gave difficult patients. Document everything. Every text, every call, every accidental incident. Build your case. After she left, I sat alone in her quiet kitchen, thinking about patterns I'd dismissed over the past 3 years. The wedding cake that mysteriously contained almond extract, despite our explicit instructions. The Christmas dinner where Evelyn forgot to tell me about the seafood stuffing. Small things, easily explained away, building to this. My phone buzzed again. Ryan. Mom wants to apologize properly, he said when I answered. She's planning a special dinner. No. The word came out harder than I intended. Vic, she feels terrible. She's crying. Of course she is. I stood up, needing to move. Ryan, think about it. Why would she plan another dinner when I just had an allergic reaction? Why not just call or visit? Silence stretched between us. When he spoke again, his voice was strained. What are you saying? I'm saying your mother is playing a game and you're letting her. That's not fair. His architect voice now, the one he used when presenting difficult concepts to clients. She's trying to make amends. By putting me in the exact same situation. That's not making amends. That's testing boundaries. More silence. I could almost see him at his office, running his hands through his hair the way he did when stressed. Finally. Come to dinner, please, for me. I'll check everything myself, I promise. No. I gathered my things, heading for my car. I love you, Ryan, but I won't put our baby at risk to make your mother feel better. Vic, I have to go. I have a client meeting. A lie, but I needed space to think. As I drove home, another text from Evelyn arrived. Ryan tells me you're still upset. I raised him to be more forgiving than this. I hope pregnancy isn't affecting your judgment too much. I pulled over, my hands shaking as I read it again. The subtle dig about raising Ryan, the implied criticism of my maternal instincts, the continued suggestion that I was being irrational, all perfectly crafted to drive a wedge between us. Claire was right. I needed evidence. Opening my phone's notes app, I started documenting everything I could remember, starting with the wedding cake. 3 years of accidents and misunderstandings filled the screen. Looking at it all laid out, I felt something shift inside me. Not just anger or fear, but clarity. Evelyn had declared war the moment I married her son, and I'd been too busy trying to keep the peace to notice. Well, if she wanted war, I'd give her one. But first, I needed allies. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Martin's number. It was time to have a conversation with my father-in-law about his wife's cooking habits. Martin met me at a coffee shop across town, far from any of Evelyn's usual haunts. His hands trembled slightly as he stirred his coffee, the spoon making tiny circles that seemed to echo his hesitation. I should have spoken up sooner, he said, his engineer's precision making each word deliberate. The Christmas when Nathan's wife left, that wasn't just about their marriage problems. I leaned forward, my untouched decaf growing cold. What do you mean? Sarah had a peanut allergy. Not as severe as yours, but... He set the spoon down with a soft clink. There was an incident. Evelyn insisted it was an accident. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Sarah left right after Christmas dinner. Nathan never questioned it. He always sides with his mother. Martin's eyes met mine, carrying years of silent witness. But I saw Evelyn in the kitchen that day. She was particular about which plates went where. My phone buzzed, another text from Ryan. Mum's really trying, Vic. She's even taking a cooking class focused on allergy awareness. I showed Martin the message. His laugh was hollow. She took a similar class after the Sarah incident, made a big show of it. Does Ryan know about Sarah? Nathan told him it was about the affair, the one that never actually happened. Martin pulled out his wallet, extracting a folded piece of paper. I've kept records, dates, incidents, patterns. I'm an engineer. We document everything. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Detailed notes spanning 15 years. Family members who'd challenged Evelyn. Subsequent accidents. Careful observations of her behavior. The methodical documentation of a man who'd watched helplessly as his wife systematically eliminated threats to her control. Why didn't you stop her? I tried once. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a faint scar. Carbon monoxide leak in the garage. Another accident. After that, I started documenting instead of confronting. The baby kicked hard, making me wince. Martin noticed. She's escalating because of the baby, he said quietly. A grandchild she can't control. Born to a mother she can't manipulate. My phone buzzed again. Evelyn this time. Found the perfect recipe for your baby shower. Don't worry, I'm being extra careful about ingredients. Ryan says you're still not returning my calls. Pregnancy can make us so emotional, can't it? Something in me snapped. I pulled up the photos I'd been gathering, screenshots of her texts, pictures from past events, medical records from my ER visit. I'm building a case, I told Martin. I need your help. He stared at his coffee cup for a long moment. It won't be enough. Evelyn was a principal for 30 years. She knows how to cover her tracks, how to make others doubt their own perceptions. Why do you think Nathan still believes Sarah cheated? Then what do I do? Wait for her to succeed? No. He slid his notes across the table. You fight smarter. Use her patterns against her. I studied the papers more carefully, seeing what he meant. Every incident had a similar structure. The subtle undermining, the public display of concern, the way she turned witnesses into unwitting accomplices. The baby shower, I said slowly. She's already setting it up. Martin nodded. She'll want to host it. Control the food, the guests, the narrative. Unless someone else already planned it. I pulled out my phone, texting Claire. Need your help with something big. Be careful, Martin warned. Evelyn's most dangerous when she feels trapped. So am I. I gathered the papers, tucking them safely away. And unlike Sarah, I have proof, and witnesses. As if on cue, my phone lit up with Claire's response. Already on it. Got some interesting info from a nurse who worked with your MIL years ago. Call me ASAP. Martin stood to leave, then hesitated. Victoria, Ryan's a good man, but he's been under her influence his whole life. Whatever you're planning, I know. I rested my hand on my stomach, feeling the baby move. But this isn't just about me anymore. He nodded once, understanding. As he walked away, my phone buzzed with another message from Ryan. Mum's crying again. Please just talk to her. I started typing a response, then stopped. Instead, I forwarded him a single photo. The hospital monitor from the night of the dinner, showing our baby's heartbeat racing as my body fought the allergic reaction. Sometimes the truth needs no words. And sometimes, the most effective revenge is simply bringing secrets into the light. I opened my notes app and added one more entry. Time to let Evelyn host that baby shower after all. I found the pregnancy test in Evelyn's bathroom trash can while searching for aspirin during a mandatory Sunday brunch. Pink lines still visible, receipt from yesterday crumpled beside it. My hands shook as I snapped a photo, mind racing through possibilities, each worse than the last. Claire's voice echoed in my head. Document everything. Downstairs, Ryan and his mother were looking at old photo albums, her voice carrying up the stairs in that honeyed tone she used when strengthening her hold on him. I pressed my hand against my 7-month bump, fighting waves of nausea that had nothing to do with pregnancy. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan's number, but the message stopped me cold. "This is Sarah. We need to talk. Today." I typed back quickly. "Corner cafe on 5th, 1 hour." Descending the stairs, I caught the end of Evelyn's conversation. "And then we'll convert the guest room into a proper nursery. That way I can help more with the baby." "Actually," I interrupted, "we've already started the nursery at home." Evelyn's smile tightened. "But you'll need help, dear. First-time mothers always do." Ryan squeezed my hand. "Mum's just trying to help, Vic. I know exactly what she's trying to do." The words came out sharper than intended. I grabbed my purse. "I have to go. Client meeting." "On Sunday?" Evelyn's eyebrows rose with practiced concern. "You're working too hard. It's not good for—" "The baby. Yes, I know. You never let me forget." Outside, the autumn air bit through my jacket. I drove to the cafe in a daze, the pregnancy test photo burning a hole in my phone. Sarah was already there, looking nothing like the woman in Martin's old photos. Her hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it was a lifeline. "I saw your name in the hospital records," she said without preamble. "Shellfish allergy, just like my peanut allergy." "Martin told me about Christmas dinner." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "That was just the final act. Did you know Evelyn kept a detailed food diary when I was pregnant? Tracking everything I ate, suggesting what was best for the baby." My blood ran cold. "Did you lose the baby?" "Yes." Her knuckles went white around the cup. "Severe allergic reaction at 7 months. Everyone said it was my fault for not being careful enough." Nathan believed her, of course. "I'm so sorry. I'm not here for sympathy." She pulled out her phone, showing me a social media post from Evelyn, a photo of baby clothes with the caption, "Can't wait to help take care of my new grandbaby." "She's already claiming your child," Sarah said softly, "just like she tried to claim mine." The pregnancy test, the nursery comments, the constant undermining. Pieces clicked together with terrifying clarity. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I ran." Sarah's eyes met mine. "I ran, and I lost everything. My marriage, my family, my chance to be a mother. Don't make my mistake. Fight." My phone buzzed again. "Ryan, where are you? Mum's worried." "Of course she is," I muttered. Sarah reached across the table, her grip surprisingly strong. "Be careful. The more evidence you gather, the more dangerous she'll become. She's not just trying to control you anymore. She wants your baby." "I won't let that happen." "No," Sarah agreed. "You won't, because you have something I didn't." "What's that?" "Me, Martin, Claire, witnesses who know the truth." She stood, leaving a business card behind. "And you have these." She pulled out a USB drive. Copies of every email, every text, every accident report from my pregnancy. I kept them all, even after I left. Maybe I was waiting for someone like you. Later, sitting in my car, I stared at the pregnancy test photo again. Then I pulled up my messages to Ryan, fingers hovering over the keys. Instead of texting, I called Claire. "I need you to run a test for me," I said when she answered. "Check if someone's been tampering with my prenatal vitamins." "You think—" "I don't think anymore, I know." I started the car, decision crystallizing. "And I need you to help me set a trap." "What kind of trap?" I thought of Sarah's haunted eyes, of Martin's careful documentation, of the baby growing inside me. "The kind that ends this, once and for all." Claire's lab results arrived while I was setting up my trap. "Your prenatal vitamins were laced with trace amounts of shellfish extract," she said, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Not enough to cause a severe reaction, but enough to keep you slightly ill. To make you look unstable, the baby kicked as I stared at the nursery walls, half painted in soft yellows. Ryan's careful architectural sketches for the room layout still hung by the door, mocking me with their innocence. "The baby shower's tomorrow," I said. "Everything ready?" Sarah's agreed to come. Martin's bringing the evidence. I've got 3 nurses from my unit who worked with Evelyn, ready to testify about past incidents. Claire paused. "Are you sure about this? Going public at your own baby shower?" "It's what she'd least expect." I touched the small camera hidden in my necklace. "And she'll be performing for an audience." My phone lit up with Evelyn's message. "Just finished the special cake for tomorrow. Use that lovely almond extract you like." I showed Claire the text. "See, she's already setting it up, making sure everyone knows I specifically requested almond extract, even though your medical records clearly show a tree nut sensitivity." Claire's typing echoed through the phone. Adding it to the evidence file. A key turned in the front door, Ryan coming home early. I quickly ended the call, but not before hearing Claire's final warning. "Remember, if anything feels wrong tomorrow..." "Victoria?" Ryan's voice carried up the stairs, worried. Always worried lately. "Mum says you haven't confirmed the final guest count." I met him in the hallway, studying his face. The dark circles under his eyes matched mine, his architect's precision crumbling under the weight of divided loyalties. "I was just looking at the nursery," I said instead of answering. "Remember when we first designed it?" He smiled, some tension easing. "You shot down all my modern minimalist ideas, because babies need warmth, not concrete and glass." I took his hand, pressing it against my belly where our child moved. "Ryan, what if something happened to me?" His body stiffened. "Nothing's going to happen." "But if it did, would you let your mother raise our baby?" "That's not..." "Would you?" I pulled away, needing to see his face clearly. "Would you trust her with our child's life?" Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, maybe, or memory. "You're upset about the vitamins." My heart stopped. "You know, Mom mentioned you might be paranoid about them. She suggested we switch brands, but..." "Did she suggest the brand?" His silence was answer enough. I walked back into the nursery, running my fingers over the crib rail. "Sarah lost her baby at 7 months. Did you know that?" "Nathan said she was careless about her allergies." "Is that what Evelyn told him to say?" Ryan's hands gripped the doorframe. "Why are you doing this? Because tomorrow your mother's either going to watch me eat that almond cake or watch me refuse and prove I'm being difficult again." I turned to face him fully. "Which do you think she's planning on?" "Stop." "Your father keeps records, Ryan, of everything. Every accident, every convenient allergic reaction, every person who's ever challenged her control." I said stop. His shout startled us both. In the sudden silence, he looked lost, almost afraid. "Just come to the shower, please. Show everyone you're not..." "Not what? Paranoid? Unstable? Unfit to be a mother?" Before he could answer, both our phones chimed. Evelyn had posted in the family group chat a photo of herself in the kitchen, surrounded by shower preparations, beaming with manufactured joy. The caption read, "Can't wait to take care of my girls tomorrow. And blessed grandma." Ryan stared at his phone, then at me, something finally shifting in his expression. "She hasn't posted anything about the baby being a girl. We haven't told anyone yet." "No," I agreed quietly. "We haven't." He sank down onto the rocking chair we'd picked out together, head in his hands. After a long moment, he looked up, and I saw my husband again, not Evelyn's son. "Tell me everything," he said. "From the beginning." I pulled out my phone, showing him the growing evidence file. "It started long before me, and if we don't stop it now, it'll never end." Tomorrow would change everything, but tonight, watching Ryan finally see the truth, I realized this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about breaking a cycle, about protecting not just our child, but every future victim of Evelyn's love. The baby shower cake sat in the center of Evelyn's dining room like a beautiful poison. Guests clustered around it, admiring the delicate frosting work, the perfectly piped roses. Only Claire, stationed nearby with an EpiPen in her purse, knew about the almond extract hidden beneath the sweetness. "Time for the mother-to-be to cut the cake." Evelyn's voice carried across the room, drawing everyone's attention. Her eyes met mine, a challenge wrapped in concern. "Unless you're still feeling unwell, dear." The hidden camera in my necklace felt heavy. Sarah stood in the corner, a ghost from Evelyn's past come back to haunt her. Martin's evidence file waited on my phone. Everything was in place, but something was wrong. Ryan wasn't here. He'd left early this morning, saying he needed time to think. Now his absence screamed danger. "Victoria?" Evelyn pressed the knife into my hand. "Everyone's waiting." Claire shifted closer. "We can still stop this." But I saw the phones already raised, ready to record what Evelyn had orchestrated. Either I'd eat the cake and suffer an allergic reaction, proving her point about my carelessness, or I'd refuse and appear paranoid, confirming her whispers about my mental state. "Before we cut the cake," I said, my voice carrying in the sudden quiet, "I'd like to share something." Evelyn's smile flickered. "The cake will get warm, dear. It can wait." I pulled out my phone, fingers trembling slightly. "I have some interesting photos to share first." The front door opened. Ryan walked in, but he wasn't alone. Nathan followed, carrying a familiar-looking box. "Mom," Nathan's voice cracked, "I found these in your study." My heart stopped. The box contained dozens of EpiPens, carefully labeled with dates and names. Sarah's, mine, others. "I can explain," Evelyn started, but Nathan wasn't finished. "There's more." He pulled out a notebook. Records of every reaction, times, doses, symptoms, like some sick experiment. The room erupted in whispers. Evelyn's face transformed, masks dropping away like autumn leaves. "You don't understand," she said, her voice taking on an edge I'd never heard before. "I had to know I could take care of them. Had to be sure I could handle any emergency." "By causing them?" Ryan's voice shook. "I protected them." Evelyn's composure shattered completely. "Sarah was reckless. Victoria's unstable. The baby needs—" "The baby?" My hand went protectively to my stomach. "What did you do to my vitamins?" "Nothing permanent." Her smile turned savage. "Just enough to keep you dependent, to show Ryan you needed help. My help." The room spun, not just the vitamins, every cup of tea, every meal she'd insisted on preparing. "How long?" I whispered. "Since the wedding." She stepped closer, reaching for my belly. "I had to be sure you were worthy, that you could handle it, and you failed, every time. But don't worry, I'll take care of everything now." Claire moved to intervene, but Evelyn was faster. She grabbed the cake knife from my hand, brandishing it with the expertise of someone who'd planned this moment. "Nobody moves," she said pleasantly. "Victoria and I are going to take a little drive, to somewhere quiet where we can wait for the baby properly." "Mom, stop." Ryan's voice was steady now, certain. "It's over. It's never over." Her laugh was brittle. "Ask Sarah, ask any of them. I always win." The knife pressed against my side, hidden from the guests by her body. In her eyes, I saw something worse than hatred or anger, absolute conviction. "The baby's a girl," she whispered in my ear. "I've already picked her name." The room tilted sideways. All my careful plans, the evidence, the witnesses, none of it mattered. I'd underestimated her desperation, her willingness to destroy everything to maintain control. "Move toward the door," she murmured. "Slowly." I caught Claire's eye, saw her reach for her phone, but Evelyn saw too. The knife pressed harder. "One call," she warned, "and we'll see how well Victoria handles stress in her condition." As she guided me toward the door, I realized with horrible clarity, this wasn't just about exposing her anymore. This was about survival. And somewhere in this house full of witnesses, I had to find a way to save not just myself, but my daughter, from a woman who would rather destroy us both than lose control. Evelyn's hand trembled against my back, as she guided me through the kitchen, past the shocked faces of party guests. The knife pressed harder when Ryan moved to follow. "Stay there, sweetheart," she called out, her principal's voice still perfectly controlled. "Victoria and I just need some girl time." The baby kicked, hard enough to make me gasp. Evelyn mistook it for fear, her grip loosening slightly. "See, she knows her grandmother." That's when I saw it. The reflection in the kitchen window. Martin, moving silently through the side door. All those years of staying quiet, watching, documenting, he'd learned how to become invisible to her. "Tell me about the others," I said, playing for time. "The ones before Sarah." "They were weak." Evelyn's voice took on a dreamy quality. "Unable to handle the responsibility. But you lasted longer than most, even with the vitamins, the food, the little tests that could have killed my baby. To make you stronger." The knife shook against my ribs. "Everything I did was to protect this family, to ensure only the worthy remained." Martin was closer now. I caught Claire's eye through the doorway, saw her slight nod. Whatever happened next, they were ready. "Is that what happened to your baby?" The words hit like a thunderbolt. Evelyn's grip tightened painfully. "Who told you?" she hissed. "Your medical records." Claire's voice rang out clear. "From 40 years ago, the baby you lost because your mother-in-law decided you weren't worthy." The knife clattered to the floor. Evelyn's hands went to her throat, a gesture I'd seen before, when I was gasping for air at her dinner table. "She tested me too," Evelyn whispered, "over and over, until I failed, until I lost everything. So you became her." Martin's quiet voice behind us made Evelyn spin around. "You turned into the very thing that destroyed you. I made them stronger." But her voice cracked, the facade crumbling. "I had to know they could survive. By poisoning them." Ryan stepped forward, phone in hand. "We have it all, Mom. Every test, every accident. The police are on their way." Evelyn lunged for the knife, but I was ready. Months of rage and fear crystallized into a single moment of clarity. I kicked it away, watching it skid under the refrigerator. "You don't understand," she sobbed, but her eyes darted toward the drawer where I knew she kept her backup plan. More EpiPens, more ways to control through crisis. "I understand perfectly." My voice was steady now. "You're not testing us. You're punishing us for a crime we didn't commit. For a loss that wasn't our fault." She moved like lightning, yanking open the drawer, but Sarah was faster, having slipped in during the chaos. The drawer was empty. "Looking for these?" Sarah held up a plastic bag full of EpiPens. 40 years of weapons, Evelyn. "Did you label them all yourself?" Evelyn's face contorted. For a moment, I saw past the monster to the broken woman beneath. The grieving mother who'd chosen to perpetuate her pain rather than heal from it. "I can help you," she pleaded, reaching for my belly one last time. "I know how to keep her safe. By teaching her fear," I caught her wrist, "by making her doubt every meal, every relationship, every moment of joy." The baby kicked again, and something shifted in Evelyn's eyes. Recognition, maybe, or remembrance. "I never meant," she started, but the words dissolved into sobs. Ryan moved forward, not to comfort but to contain. As he guided his mother to a chair, the sound of sirens grew closer. "I did it for you," she whispered to him, "all of it, for the family." "No, Mom." Ryan's voice was gentle but firm. "You did it to the family, and now it's over." As the police entered, I felt the weight of the hidden camera lift from my neck. Claire pressed an untainted glass of water into my hands. Martin stood guard by the drawer of horrors. Sarah watched her former mother-in-law led away, tears streaming down her face. Not for Evelyn, but for the baby she'd lost to this crusade. The revenge I'd planned had transformed into something else. A rescue mission, not just for myself and my daughter, but for every victim of Evelyn's twisted love, including, perhaps, Evelyn herself. "Victoria," Ryan reached for my hand. "Let's go home." Home, where we'd build something new from these ashes. Something based on trust instead of tests, love instead of fear. The baby kicked once more, as if in agreement. The nursery walls glowed soft yellow in the morning light as I rocked our daughter, breathing in her newborn scent. Ryan's architectural plans still hung by the door, but now they shared space with photos. Claire cutting the hospital bracelet, Martin holding his granddaughter for the first time, Sarah's tearful smile as she touched the baby's hand. The trial documents sat unopened on the changing table. Nathan had dropped them off yesterday, his usual indifference cracked by something darker. "Mum's asking to see the baby," he'd said, not quite meeting my eyes. "She's completed the court-mandated therapy, and with good behavior." I'd closed the door before he finished. Now, watching my daughter's peaceful face, I understood something about cycles, how they don't break cleanly, but spiral outward like ripples in water. The investigation had uncovered 3 decades of Evelyn's victims. Some had come forward for the trial. Others remained silent, their scars too deep for public display. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Ryan entered, carrying 2 cups of tea. A simple act that had taken months to feel safe again. "Claire called," he said, setting my cup down. "Sarah's starting a support group. For the others." I nodded, remembering the quiet strength in Sarah's voice when she'd testified, how she'd looked directly at Evelyn and said, "I forgive you, but I'll never forget." "Nathan thinks we're being too harsh," Ryan continued, his fingers brushing our daughter's cheek. "That everyone deserves a second chance. This was her second chance," I said quietly, "and her third and fourth. Every victim was another chance to choose differently." The baby stirred, her tiny hand wrapping around my finger. We'd named her Hope, not for what we'd lost, but for what we'd found in the ashes of Evelyn's destruction. A new kind of family, built on truth instead of tests. Martin visited weekly, bringing his engineer's precision to grandfather duties. He'd installed security cameras, tested every surface for allergens, created spreadsheets of safety protocols. But unlike Evelyn's obsessive control, his care came wrapped in love, not fear. "The prosecutor called," Ryan said after a moment. "Mum's written another letter." I looked at the stack of unopened envelopes on my desk. Each one addressed to Hope, each one returned unopened. Evelyn's new method of control, trying to write herself into our daughter's story before it began. "She says she's changed," Ryan added, but his tone held no conviction. "Maybe she has." I shifted Hope to my shoulder, breathing in her baby powder scent. But that's her journey now, not ours. Through the window, I could see Claire arriving for her daily visit, carrying grocery bags. She'd appointed herself our food tester, our safety net, our bridge back to trust. In her wake came Sarah, then Martin, our chosen family gathering for Sunday breakfast. "Sometimes I wonder," Ryan said, watching them approach, "if revenge and healing look the same in the end. Mum's alone now, facing her demons. Isn't that what you wanted?" "No." I stood, cradling Hope close. "I wanted justice. The loneliness. That's just the natural consequence of her choices." Hope made a small sound, drawing everyone's attention as they entered. Sarah's eyes brightened, though I caught the familiar shadow of grief beneath her smile. Martin moved to the window, checking the locks with practiced ease. Claire unpacked groceries, each item carefully labeled and verified. We carried scars, all of us, but we'd learned to wear them differently than Evelyn had. Instead of using them as weapons, we'd turn them into shields, protecting the next generation from the poison of the past. "Ready for breakfast?" Claire called from the kitchen. "Almost," I answered, settling Hope into Ryan's arms. As I watched them together, I thought about cycles again, about how breaking them doesn't mean forgetting, but choosing differently. Every meal shared without fear, every touch given in love, every truth spoken openly, these were our victories now. The morning light caught Hope's face, making her look luminous. In that moment, I saw not just my daughter, but a promise, that some chains are meant to be broken, that some victories come not from revenge, but from refusing to continue the dance. I touched the last unopened letter from Evelyn, then turned away. Some stories needed to end for others to begin. Coming, I called to Claire, leaving the past behind, stepping into the light of our hard-won peace.
Who showed interest were investors looking for a fixer-upper. Eventually, our family decided to buy the property, seeing it as a challenge and a potential dream home once restored. We'll refer to the previously mentioned neighbors with different names to simplify the story. Sophia will be referred to as Troublesome Neighbor, and her son will be known as Gaming Son. It's essential to understand that our story stretches over nearly 17 years, from when we first purchased the house to the present day. Significant gaps occurred between each incident, so keep this timeline in mind as we proceed. The background is crucial to setting the stage for what unfolded. Troublesome Neighbor owned a substantial piece of land close to a popular lake, sought after for its recreational appeal. The road where Troublesome Neighbor lived was the main access route to several high-value lakefront properties and resorts, as well as a widely used boat dock. Upon reaching a point in her life where she wanted to distribute her wealth, Troublesome Neighbor divided her land into 4 equal parts. She gifted one part to her daughter, who, surprisingly, turned out quite level-headed despite her upbringing, and another to Gaming Son. She built them homes tailored to their preferences. The third and fourth pieces were utilized differently. One held her own residence, and the other was developed into a small convenience store, which becomes pertinent later in the story. For reasons unclear, possibly to preempt any future disputes, Troublesome Neighbor transferred the deeds of these properties to her children. Gaming Son, living true to his moniker, became notorious in the neighborhood for his wild and noisy parties, which disrupted the peace nightly. The local police were frequently called due to his disturbances. While Troublesome Neighbor covered most of Gaming Son's expenses, such as utilities, all billed to her directly, the property taxes tied to the deed were his responsibility. However, he neglected these payments. Troublesome Neighbor either overlooked this detail or assumed her son was handling it responsibly. The oversight came to a head when the property, severely damaged from Gaming Son's continual revelries, was foreclosed and auctioned off. The house was in a deplorable state, with significant structural and aesthetic damages, rendering it virtually uninhabitable. Our family acquired the property at the auction, seeing potential beneath the ruin. As we embarked on the renovations, Troublesome Neighbor tried to interfere with our efforts, claiming she had plans for the land that our new home occupied. Her attempts escalated to legal threats, but little did she know, her son's negligence with the property taxes had severed her ties to the property. The climax of this saga arrived when Troublesome Neighbor was slapped with a staggering $470,000 bill, stemming from a combination of her son's unpaid taxes and the legal fees she accumulated in her fruitless battle against us. This twist of karma forced her to reckon with the consequences of her entitlement and her son's irresponsibility. Thus, our story concludes with the renovated house becoming our cherished home, standing as a testament to resilience and the belief in second chances, while Troublesome Neighbor faced the financial ramifications of her oversight and her son's recklessness. Only those who could afford the out-of-pocket expenses could take advantage of certain opportunities. John, however, was in a slightly different league. He was a retired house, not one of the magnates featured on glossy TV shows, but rather a hobbyist who found joy in his craft. Flipping houses was more than just a pastime for him. It was a way to stay busy and physically active during his retirement years. John would scout for properties being auctioned off at a bargain, purchase them, and then take on the renovations himself. As he worked on refurbishing these homes, he lived off the profits from his previous flip. This cycle of buying, renovating, and selling kept him engaged, and any leftover funds were modestly tucked away into an emergency savings account, which he humbly noted was nothing special. My partner and I were in the market for a new home, constrained by a tight budget, when we stumbled upon one of John's projects listed online. It seemed like the ideal find. Perfectly sized, ideally located near a beloved lake known for its fishing and boating, and it was in a desirable neighborhood. Though the listing didn't mention a price, we decided it wouldn't hurt to take a closer look. Upon visiting the property, we met John hard at work. After a warm greeting and a casual conversation about the house, John mentioned he had just added the listing to the website to streamline the sale process once he was ready. He shared that the house was midway through renovations and had already attracted several offers. Despite our offer to buy it at a fair price considering its current state, John politely declined, committed to selling it only once fully completed. Nevertheless, he took down our contact details, promising to reach out if circumstances changed. Surprisingly, less than 3 weeks later, John called us with unexpected news. His sister had fallen ill out of state, and he needed to be with her, which meant he couldn't complete the renovations. He was willing to sell the house to us at a reasonable price if we could manage to bring it up to code on our own. Thrilled, we quickly sought financial help through a leasing manager friend who connected us with a bank that would finance the purchase under strict conditions. We had 3 weeks to meet the building codes, or the bank would seize the property. John, though unable to assist physically due to his urgent departure, guided us through what was needed to meet the minimum legal standards for the house. He generously doubled the loan amount we needed, returning half immediately for the necessary repairs. With this boost, plus the groundwork John had already laid, we felt confident in tackling the rest ourselves. Rallying friends for help, we managed to expedite the process, meeting the code requirements swiftly. There was still much to do, replacing floors, rewiring, patching walls, and removing the crumbling old wallpaper. After months of intensive labor, our dream home was finally habitable, though minor issues remained to be addressed over time. As we settled in, our neighbor introduced herself. Despite John's previous warnings about her challenging demeanor, she initially came across as quite friendly, leaving us puzzled about John's cautions. Yet, as we would learn over time, first impressions can sometimes be misleading. As we were concluding our discussion, she shared with us, in a very empathetic manner, that the house we were living in was actually hers and that we had to vacate within 27 days. She sympathized with our situation, recognizing that we were victims of a scam, but clarified that she was the rightful owner and the person who sold us the house had no legal authority to do so. We were shaken, as we had previously heard about similar scams, but never imagined we'd experience it firsthand. The shock of potentially losing our dream home after investing so much time, effort, and money was overwhelming. Grateful for her kindness in explaining the situation, we decided to verify the facts with the bank and the previous owner, referred to here as John. Everyone we consulted, the bank, the realtor, and John, corroborated that John was the legitimate owner, having purchased the house at an auction. Despite her claims, it was evident from court records and conversations with neighbors that our ownership was lawful. The neighbors also shared the backstory of how the woman, referred to as S, lost the property due to her son's mistakes. When S returned to inquire about our moving plans, we firmly stated that we would not be leaving, as we legally owned the property. We expressed sympathy for her loss, but explained that it wasn't our fault, and we couldn't just relinquish a property for which we had worked hard and invested significantly. S, distressed, shared how the house had been in her family for generations and lamented its loss, claiming it was unfairly taken during a tumultuous time in her family's life. We questioned why her family hadn't tried to reclaim the house at auction, especially since we had purchased it for a modest sum. She insisted they shouldn't have to pay for something that was rightfully theirs. Despite understanding her emotional attachment, we explained that we couldn't absorb a financial loss on the property. We did, however, offer to sell it back to her at a reduced price, $270,000, which was still below market value after our renovations. S countered with an offer of $40,000, arguing she shouldn't pay at all, but eventually conceded to include an additional $27,000 acknowledging our efforts in renovating the house. We informed her that our purchase price had been $70,000, which frustrated her, leading to accusations of dishonesty on our part. The conversation ended with unresolved tensions, but we remained open to negotiating a fair resolution that acknowledged both our investment and her sentimental attachment to the property. Our patience had been pushed to the limit. The woman had escalated her disrespect to the point of denigrating our dream home, calling it a worthless dump. This was the home we had invested countless hours and significant money into renovating. We couldn't tolerate her disrespect any longer and politely asked her to leave, making it clear that she was no longer welcome and that under no circumstances would we consider selling the house to her, not even for twice its market value. As expected, she didn't take this rejection well and hurled insults at us as she stormed out. We later discovered that she was spreading vicious rumors throughout the neighborhood, accusing us of having stolen the property from her among other baseless claims. Initially, we dismissed these rumors, doubting anyone would believe such outlandish stories. However, our assumption proved wrong when a man we'd never met drove up to our house, armed and demanding we vacate immediately. Known in the community as a self-appointed peacekeeper, this individual had a reputation for addressing disputes in our area. Our neighborhood is quite divided. One part is a tranquil enclave of retirees, while the other hosts a rougher crowd, set deeper in the wilderness. We live on the edge of the peaceful section, buffered by miles of woodlands and farmland. Believing that the armed man might be the reputed peacekeeper, based on descriptions we'd heard, we decided to clarify the situation. We invited him inside for a beer to discuss the matter calmly, making it clear he could keep his weapon as long as he understood we would be armed too. It's a common practice here. Most residents own firearms, and it's a mutual sign of preparedness rather than a threat. After a few hours of conversation, where we explained our side of the story, the peacekeeper realized he had been misled by the rumors. He apologized for the confrontation, admitting he had reacted hastily. He expressed gratitude towards us for buying the property, noting that the neighborhood had become much happier without the previous owner's disruptive behavior, which included loud parties and unruly teenagers causing nightly disturbances. We all shared a laugh over the misunderstanding, and he left, reassured and without further incident. His easy acceptance of the rumors, however, highlighted how quickly misinformation could escalate and affect our lives. This narrative takes us down a less traveled path, yet it marks a significant turning point where things began to deteriorate for Anne. I want to mention that the events in this story slightly overlap with the next chapter, but let's delve into it. Anne decided to section off a quarter of her property to construct a convenience store, which quickly became a local favorite. Despite its central location, the store's popularity wasn't due to competitive pricing. They actually charged a premium on their products. Nor was it for exceptional customer service. The extent of their hospitality was usually a simple thank you as customers exited, though they did occasionally offer refunds for expired items, which was a small consolation. The real reason behind the store's success was its monopoly as the only convenience store within miles. For residents who wanted to avoid a long drive to town for groceries, Anne's store was conveniently close. Despite any personal reservations, many, including myself, frequented the store simply because it was so accessible. The store's success helped and built a strong, positive reputation in our community. People cherished having such a convenient shopping option nearby and would defend it fiercely against any threats. This sentiment was strong back when everyone believed Anne and her family were upstanding citizens. When Anne began spreading rumors, people initially listened. Although the more outrageous accusations, like stealing an entire house, were dismissed as absurd, other rumors persisted, though these were minor and rarely taken seriously. Regardless, the impact was felt. The community started avoiding us, fearing reprisal from and losing access to her store. Years later, after serving time in prison, S returned with nowhere else to go. And, not wanting him back at home, arranged for him to live in an apartment above the store, with the condition that he managed the store occasionally without hosting any disruptive gatherings. Interestingly, S wasn't required to pay rent. Instead, his work at the store covered his stay. However, old habits die hard. While managing the register, S often overcharged customers, pocketing the difference. We caught on to this and, after spotting a pattern, confronted Anne about her son's actions. Despite the seriousness of the issue, Anne dismissed our concerns, accusing us of imagining things and rudely told us to leave it be. We complied but shared our experiences with a few neighbors. It took years to break the ice with the community, given the rumors and Anne's influence, but we eventually made some friends by spreading holiday cheer with Christmas treats. Though our neighbors thanked us for the information about the overcharging, they were skeptical. In all, this side story isn't just a diversion, it's a crucial piece of the larger narrative, illustrating how a seemingly benign venture could influence community ties and personal reputations so profoundly. In our neighborhood, news traveled fast, and soon enough, Mr. William arrived at our driveway once again. This time, his demeanor was much warmer. Over time, he had learned to disregard the baseless rumors circulating about us. We had interacted with him on multiple occasions since, mostly on casual terms. He'd occasionally stop by to share a beer and chat about local happenings, seeking our views on various topics. This was his way with everyone. He made it a point to connect with each household at least once a year to keep the community tight-knit and peaceful. He wasn't keen on having police linger around unnecessarily, so he took it upon himself to maintain order, reducing the need for their presence. Everyone appreciated this approach. It allowed for a sense of safety where even children could wander down to the lake by themselves, navigating even the less desirable parts of the area. However, Mr. William was not pleased about the rumors we had been spreading about our neighbors and their small shop. He made it clear that he had spoken to them and believed the issues were simply misunderstandings related to cash register errors. He urged us to cease spreading these rumors to avoid further complications. We considered showing him proof to validate our claims, but it seemed futile. He held the shop owners in high regard and likely would take their side. Reluctantly, we agreed and apologized, explaining that our intentions were merely to look out for our fellow neighbors whom we had grown close to. He accepted our apology, issued a stern warning, and left without much further ado. Following this, we decided to limit our patronage to the shop, only visiting when absolutely necessary. Yet, over the next couple of years, as we had initially pointed out, more residents began to notice discrepancies on their receipts after shopping there. The rumors we had started, despite being initially quashed by Mr. William, began to resurface and gain credibility. Residents observed similar overcharges that we had experienced, suggesting a pattern of potential financial misconduct at the store. It appeared that substantial sums of money were being siphoned off, and the shop owners, aware of the discrepancies, chose to downplay the issues rather than address them. Eventually, the persistence of these issues caught Mr. William's attention. When he finally pieced everything together, his reaction was explosive. We could hear him next door, vehemently confronting the shop owners about their dishonest practices. It was immensely satisfying to witness. But that confrontation was just the start. That same day, he went from door to door, informing every neighbor about the shop's deceitful actions. This proactive disclosure had a profound impact. The trust and dependency that the local store relied on from community members, especially during the busier, profitable summer months, were severely compromised. The revelations not only affected their seasonal earnings but also threatened their ability to sustain through the quieter winter period. Mr. Williams' decisive intervention marked a turning point, fundamentally altering the community's relationship with the shop. He carried a stack of receipts with him, ready to offer proof to anyone curious enough to inquire. Mr. William, as he was aptly named, had swiftly become the most trusted figure in the neighborhood. Yet, in just one day, he inadvertently devastated their local business. Residents soon ceased their patronage, leaving the store to rely on tourists and seasonal visitors during the summer and winter. But when the off-season arrived, the business began losing money drastically. After enduring 4 harsh winters, the owners were compelled to shut down during the colder months. This decision forced them to discard over 87% of their inventory each fall, only to restock afresh each spring. The strategy proved financially unviable, leading to the permanent closure of the shop after 4 additional years. As the business's reputation plummeted, the community's perception shifted favorably towards us, enhancing our social standing and fostering new friendships with ease. Our previous isolation seemed to dissolve, and we no longer felt ostracized. But this was merely the prelude to a greater downfall for Ellie, our neighbor. Ellie was exceptionally nosy. It was impossible to step outside without catching her eye as she surveilled us from her window, or found some pretext to be outdoors, whether walking her dog, tending to her lawn, or weeding her garden. She was omnipresent, a constant observer of our every move. Although we had nothing to hide, her intrusive gaze was uncomfortable, especially as we planned to install a swimming pool and hot tub in our backyard. In an effort to maintain privacy and good neighborly relations, we informed Ellie about our intention to erect a privacy fence. She vehemently opposed it, but we reassured her that we would consider her preferences regarding its appearance. Despite our strained relations, we aimed to be considerate neighbors. As we prepared to install the fence, we meticulously planned to position it slightly within our property line to avoid any disputes. Before finalizing anything, we obtained a copy of our property deed and a detailed map from the courthouse. To our astonishment, we discovered that Ellie had encroached upon a significant portion of our land, using it for her shed and garden. The property line, marked by a row of trees, revealed that what we assumed to be a straightforward boundary was actually part of a complex, irregularly shaped parcel, resembling a half-hexagon or trapezoid. When we confronted Ellie with the evidence, she reacted explosively, denouncing us as liars and thieves. Although we had assumed for years that the land was hers, and we didn't particularly need it, we offered to sell it to her to simplify matters. However, resolving this issue would require more than just a straightforward transaction, given the depth of her accusations and our desire to maintain peace. This narrative might be turning into a novella, but I promise that the climax of this tale is worth the backstory. Stick with me, as the resolution of our property dispute and the impact on our neighborhood relations unfold. In our community, which is quite rural with quirky property lines, property disputes are common. This is partly because many property deeds are very old, sometimes centuries old, and describe boundaries using natural landmarks like large oaks or rocks next to streams. These landmarks may no longer exist or could be hard to precisely identify today. Additionally, even a small piece of land can be quite valuable, which has led our state to implement stringent laws and regulations about property disputes and land surveying. A few years back, a neighbor and I had a disagreement over a piece of land that bordered ours. This particular strip of land was difficult for her to maintain, and if we could incorporate it into our property, it would have been easier for us to manage. It would also have given us extra space for our activities. We proposed a trade or purchase, but she rejected the offer outright. She felt that the land was rightfully hers and accused us of trying to steal it from her. Since then, the dispute has been ongoing. Regarding property surveying, the laws are tough. If a survey engineer makes even a small error, they face severe penalties, including hefty fines and the potential loss of their license. They are also required to notify all their clients from up to 15 years back, who can then demand a new survey at the original survey engineer's expense. If a survey engineer is found to have accepted a bribe or been blackmailed, all damages and additional costs are charged to the person who bribed or blackmailed them. This ensures that survey engineer maintain high integrity and avoid getting involved in property disputes whenever possible. When the property dispute arose with our neighbor, finding a survey engineer wasn't straightforward. It was not only challenging due to the complexity of the dispute, but also an unexpected financial burden. Before we could resolve the issue, it seems that she may have influenced the situation to her advantage. Oh, it's been quite a roller coaster with our property line disputes. Let me take you through it from the top. Our neighbor seems to have a peculiar interest in our property, right up to where our land almost brushes her house, just about a foot away. This has been a source of playful mischief for a while, but it's grown into something far more intense. Our neighbor, it appears, has not only embraced this minuscule boundary, but has taken steps that seem downright deceitful. She's been overly friendly to any survey engineer we've attempted to hire, dropping hints of a potential property dispute, which naturally scares them off. To top it off, the original land markers that were clearly marked when we bought the property have mysteriously vanished. Hiring a new survey engineer now comes with exorbitant fees, which seem almost designed to dissuade us. This saga took a dramatic turn a few months back when a severe storm brought down a tree on this contested strip of land. The fallen tree didn't just block the road. It wrecked part of another neighbor's property across the street and, unbelievably, smashed a brand new sports car passing by. Thankfully, no one was injured, but the aftermath was a nightmare, leading to a hefty cleanup and even heftier demands for compensation. We received a bill for over $200,000 from an insurance company, claiming the tree was ours, and hence we were liable for the damages. Understanding the nuances of property law, where one is often held accountable for such damages, we contested this claim. We knew that tree wasn't on our property. After a back and forth with the insurance company, which included them sending us a deed with the wrong property lines, they insisted we were liable. We directed them to our survey engineer for clarification. There was a tense wait as they reviewed this new information. In the end, after reminding the insurance of the correct property boundaries as confirmed by our survey engineer, the matter quietly disappeared. It seems the potential consequences of falsifying survey results, or the mere realization of their mistake, prompted a swift backpedal. We haven't received any further demands, and it's been quiet since then. This experience has been a stark reminder of the importance of clear, accurate property lines and the lengths some might go to challenge them. Due to confidentiality, they couldn't share much with us, but they did confirm that another party had disputed the claim, just as we had. This other party also asserted that the property in question did not belong to the claimant. The survey engineer, who was independently hired, confirmed this, and since we were not contesting the survey results, there was no basis for the insurance company to doubt their accuracy. Thus, all liabilities for damages caused by the fallen tree were deemed to be the responsibility of the individual who hired the survey engineer. We were content with this outcome, as it aligned with our expectations. Despite the dispute, the individual responsible for the damages seemed financially capable of settling the claim without selling any land, which was a relief to them, albeit begrudgingly. Since then, we've kept a low profile regarding the property dispute, though we are contemplating saving to hire another survey engineer to reclaim our land. For us, it's now more about the principle than the land itself. As for the individual, their attitude towards us has clearly soured, evident whenever our paths cross. It's puzzling that they would be displeased over keeping the land, considering it was given freely. Rumors might circulate from their end, but we doubt they would gain any traction. We've established strong relationships within our community, and trust in this person has significantly diminished after their actions were exposed. Now, we're mostly observing from the sidelines, watching as the consequences of their actions unfold, potentially leading to a precarious situation for them. It's an interesting turn of events, and we're curious to see what happens next. On a lighter note, while contemplating various boundary solutions, we opted for an invisible dog fence instead of a traditional privacy fence. For those unfamiliar, this involves burying a wire that, when approached too closely by a dog wearing a special collar, emits a warning beep and, if ignored, a mild shock. We prefer this method as it's effective without being harsh. Growing up, I was always the biggest kid in the class, noticeably heavier than my classmates even in kindergarten. This difference only grew more pronounced over the years, setting me apart throughout my school life. High school was tough. My size seemed to define me, making me a target for ridicule and isolating me from my peers. College offered no respite. While others were discovering themselves and thriving, I felt trapped in the same, unchanging identity of being the overweight one, frequently struggling with self-acceptance. The relentless bullying I faced left deep scars. My classmates' cruel jokes and hurtful comments chipped away at my confidence and self-esteem, making me feel unworthy of friendship or love. I often found myself excluded from social activities, which only intensified my feelings of isolation. To cope, I turned to books, finding solace and escape in stories that didn't judge but provided refuge from my daily struggles. Although I became known as the bookish nerd, a label I wasn't fond of, it was better than the scorn I faced outside my literary havens. My younger sister Chloe, in contrast, was a natural charmer with a magnetic personality that made her incredibly popular. Despite our close ages, our experiences in school were worlds apart. I loved her deeply and felt a strong protective instinct towards her, proud to be her older sister. However, as Chloe grew older and more integrated into high school life, our paths diverged sharply. She began to pull away, influenced perhaps by the social circles that saw me as different and uncool. This distancing by someone I cherished was painful, but I tried to respect her need for space, though it hurt deeply. When our family decided that I should lose weight for Chloe's wedding, I was initially resistant, but eventually embarked on a journey of transformation. Surprisingly, as I lost weight and started gaining confidence, my success seemed to unsettle my family, particularly because the dynamics of our relationships began to shift. While I had always been in the background, my newfound confidence brought me into the spotlight, which was difficult for everyone, including me, to navigate. Despite the challenges, this transformation was a crucial turning point, helping me realize my worth and strength far beyond physical appearance. Over time, I wasn't just losing a sister, but also a friend. As Chloe began to distance herself, she started hanging out with a new group that quickly treated me as an outsider. Whenever we crossed paths, either in the school hallways or during lunch, Chloe and her friends would ridicule me openly, sometimes even attempting to trip me when I carried my lunch tray, much to the amusement of others. This bullying was not just from strangers, but from my sister, which made it all the more painful. This torment wasn't confined to school, it extended to our home. When Chloe had friends over, they would barge into my room, invade my personal space, and mock everything from my appearance to my hobbies, calling me names like geek and fatty. I felt utterly alone and dehumanized, like an exhibit in their personal zoo. I tried multiple times to express my distress to my parents, hoping they might see how deeply Chloe's behavior affected me. However, each time I brought it up, they would dismiss my concerns, rationalize her actions as typical sibling play, and advise me to be more tolerant and resilient. This minimization of my feelings left me feeling even more isolated within my own family. The one area where I received some recognition from our parents was my academic performance. I excelled in school, and this academic success was a point of pride for them. They would often boast about my grades to friends and relatives, showcasing me as the scholarly figure in the family. Unfortunately, this only fueled Chloe's resentment towards me. She seemed to despise being compared to me academically, which likely contributed to her antagonistic actions. In her moments of spite, Chloe would sometimes sabotage my schoolwork. She'd stealthily enter my room at night and take my completed assignments, particularly right before they were due. I'd wake up in a panic, scrambling to find my work, while she watched with a smirk, enjoying the turmoil she'd caused. This was her way of leveling the playing field, a small victory in her eyes, but a significant blow to me. I was always aware of how deeply I valued my academic performance and the significant part it played in my sense of self-worth. Chloe, however, seemed to find pleasure in disrupting this area of my life. It was only years later, during a tipsy confession one night, that I learned she had been stealing my assignments. Although time has softened my relationship with Chloe, we remain distant. We've both matured, and some of the childhood bitterness has faded, yet we never developed the tight bond that many siblings share. After finishing school, I moved to a new city to start afresh with an engaging job and new opportunities. This meant I saw less of my family, and our interactions dwindled to sporadic calls and messages. So, when I planned to visit home last summer, I was genuinely excited about reuniting with everyone after such a long time. The family lunch started well, with everyone seeming happy to see me, reminiscent of the old days. However, the mood shifted when Chloe unexpectedly announced her engagement, showing off a stunning ring. I was happy for her, seeing that she had found someone to love and be loved by in return. But as the congratulations died down, Chloe turned the conversation to me. She asked about my life and work, but before I could fully respond, she interjected with a smirk. "Why are you still overweight if your life is so great? Shouldn't you have lost weight by now?" Her words stunned me, rekindling insecurities I thought I had moved past. The room fell silent, and as everyone's eyes turned to me, I managed only an awkward chuckle. My parents then began to criticize my weight and marital status, openly worrying about my prospects of having children. I felt humiliated, My achievements and the life I had built seemed insignificant to them. They only cared about my physical appearance and marital status. As my parents and Chloe continued to discuss me, I felt the sting of their words more deeply than I had anticipated. Despite years of building my own confidence and independence, in that moment, I reverted to the anxious, approval-seeking teenager I once was. The praise showered on Chloe for her engagement only highlighted their disappointment in me. What was meant to be a joyful family gathering quickly became a painful reminder of old wounds. Chloe didn't stop there. She prodded about my romantic life in front of everyone, with my parents echoing her sentiment that it was high time I settled down. I tried to defend my choices, explaining how much my career and independence meant to me, how fulfilled I felt with my life just as it was. Yet, the implication was clear. Despite my successes, they saw me as the lesser sibling, not fully realized without a spouse or child. I have always been at peace with who I am, and I share this with my family, but it seemed like my words fell on deaf ears. My mother looked at me with disdain and challenged my choices, questioning the value of my earnings if I had no one to share them with. She seemed unable to grasp that one could find happiness outside the conventional path of marriage and family. As I sat there, a familiar feeling of being misunderstood washed over me. It was disheartening to realize that my own family could not appreciate the life I had chosen for myself. They seemed fixated on a different idea of happiness. During this tense family gathering, as we discussed my cousin Chloe's upcoming wedding, she casually insisted that I should bring a date, hinting that I'd appear lonely and miserable otherwise. Her comments hurt, but I tried to brush them off with a promise to consider it. The conversation then took a more personal turn as my family suggested I lose weight to look better for the wedding, implying it would also improve my chances of finding a partner. Chloe agreed, suggesting it was for my own good. I was stunned and hurt by their blunt words. It was as if they believed my weight defined me, dismissing my feelings simply because of my size. I had never seen my weight as a barrier to anything, especially love, as I had been in relationships where I was appreciated just as I am. However, my family's remarks made me feel like I was back in high school, being targeted because of my weight. Despite the hurt, I couldn't find the words to express how wrong they were. So I held back my pain and changed the subject. When I returned from my visit, motivated by a mix of proving them wrong and personal growth, I embarked on a weight loss journey. I joined a gym, adopted a strict diet, and even hired a sports coach who had herself transformed from overweight to a healthy weight. She was incredibly supportive, tailoring a fitness plan to my needs and encouraging me throughout, reminding me to be kind to myself even when I faltered. As I lost weight, I felt a burden lifting both physically and emotionally. This journey transformed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. My confidence soared, and for the first time, I not only felt different, but I also saw myself in a new light. This transformation became not just about meeting others' expectations, but about rediscovering myself and cementing my self-worth. I never truly understood the profound impact losing weight could have until I experienced it firsthand. Nowadays, I'm greeted with newfound kindness from strangers and a rejuvenated sense of admiration from friends and colleagues. It's almost as if I've gained a new level of acknowledgement that I had never received before. It feels as though I've become more visible to the world. This transformation extended beyond my physical appearance. I revamped my entire wardrobe with clothes I once only dreamed of wearing and even dared to adopt a bold, trendy hairstyle that I previously wouldn't have had the courage to try. Despite the expense, the joy and newfound confidence I feel are incomparable. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see a stranger, a version of myself that I was previously unaware of. I'm incredibly proud of my journey, not solely for the weight loss, but for the immense boost in self-assurance I've achieved. With Chloe's wedding approaching and an invitation to fly home for a pre-wedding family lunch, I find myself hesitant to return. Past experiences of being ridiculed by my family make me apprehensive about facing them again, especially now that I'm finally feeling positive about myself. The thought of skipping the wedding crosses my mind, knowing it would lead to a lecture about the importance of family, regardless of past hurts. After sharing my story online, The flood of supportive responses was overwhelming. Many even humorously suggested I should attend just to surprise my family with my transformation. Growing up overweight, I battled low self-esteem and persistent self-doubt, always feeling like I didn't measure up. But the encouragement from others has been a game changer, boosting my confidence to new heights. Motivated by this support, I decided to accept the lunch invitation, curious about their reaction to my change. When I arrived, my parents were visibly shocked, almost unable to recognize me. Their astonishment turned into joy as they hugged me and showered me with compliments. However, the atmosphere shifted when Chloe arrived. Initially, she didn't even recognize me, continuing her usual habit of overlooking my presence. But as I approached her, her surprise was evident. She even poked my stomach, seemingly in disbelief at my transformation. This moment marked a significant turning point. Despite the mixed reactions, the positive changes in my life, spearheaded by my weight loss, have equipped me with a resilience and self-assuredness that I carry proudly. Now, as I consider attending the wedding, I do so with a spirit of self-respect, ready to face whatever reactions come my way. I had finally managed to shed all that weight, and my parents couldn't help but laugh at their friend Chloe's stunned reaction. As we gathered around the table for lunch, the conversation quickly turned to my transformation. Both Chloe and my parents peppered me with questions, amazed at how different I looked. Their voices carried a tone of disbelief, as if they had never pictured me looking any different. Chloe, especially, seemed astonished. She kept saying she hadn't expected such a dramatic change after I lost weight. Then she added, "When I first suggested you lose some weight, I never thought you'd turn out this gorgeous. I didn't even know you had such a defined jawline and slim ankles hidden away." I tried to stay composed and simply smiled, reminding her, "Chloe, I've always been beautiful. Losing weight just brought out my features more." However, Chloe suggested something more. With a boldness that took me aback, she asked if I had undergone any cosmetic procedures because, to her, it seemed impossible to achieve such results naturally. Feeling my irritation rise at her insinuation that I needed surgery to look attractive, I met her gaze firmly and responded, "Wow, Chloe, I'm surprised you think so little of me. No surgery, just a lot of hard work and self-love, something you might want to consider." Her face shifted from shock to displeasure, but I didn't mind. It felt empowering to stand my ground. Before Chloe could say anything else, my parents tried to defuse the tension. "Don't take it the wrong way," my mom said soothingly. "It's just that we've never seen you like this. Honestly, you even look more stunning than Chloe now, and she's the one getting married." This comment seemed to make Chloe even more upset. I turned my attention back to my meal, letting her simmer in her annoyance. Then my mom chimed in again, suggesting I reconsider my hair color. "Maybe you should go back to your natural shade. This blonde is too striking. It might be better to return to how you used to look." Chloe and my dad agreed quickly. Dad added, "Chloe has always been the blonde in the family, and you were our brunette. It might be best to revert to your original color. It suits the real you." I was shocked by their words. It felt like they were all teaming up against me, trying to push me back to my old self. My stylist had recommended the blonde to complement my new skin tone and features. It wasn't about overshadowing Chloe. I couldn't understand why my parents were unhappy with the new me. It was as if, despite their initial encouragement for me to fit into their vision for Chloe's wedding, they couldn't handle the person I had become. Instead of celebrating my progress, they seemed intent on diminishing it. Finally, I couldn't hold back anymore and confronted them. "What's the problem? Why can't I choose to be blonde too? Is that color somehow exclusive to my sister?" As I voiced my frustration, it became clear that no, she didn't own the color. Whether I choose blonde or brunette should be my decision. Why does this matter so much to everyone else? I struggled to grasp their fixation on my appearance aligning with my past self. When I mentioned changing my hair color, my mother sharply criticized me, accusing me of trying to overshadow my sister Chloe's wedding by drawing attention to myself. Chloe chimed in, highlighting that with my recent weight loss, I was already going to be noticeable. She questioned, did I really need to adopt her hair color too? My father supported their views, labeling me as difficult without cause and reminding me to be more considerate as Chloe's sister. I was astonished. This wasn't about stealing anything. It was about expressing myself and seeking happiness. Instead of support, they expressed concern that I might make Chloe uncomfortable. Finally, I had enough. "I'm done with this," I muttered, the words burning with sincerity as I spoke them. It seemed they were all too wrapped up in their negativity to recognize my transformation. I had always been great just as I am, but they had failed to see it. Even after my weight loss, it seemed nothing I did was enough. As I let that sink in, they just stared back, but it no longer mattered. I was finished holding back. "Since you all have so much to say about my choices, maybe it's time for some candid feedback," I declared. I started with my mother, commenting on the noticeable sagging of her skin. To my father, I pointed out his lack of hair, questioning his right to critique anyone's appearance. Turning to Chloe, I sternly reminded her never to belittle me again, noting that even with my weight loss, I still outshone her. With a smirk, I downed my drink and walked out, leaving a stunned silence behind. I couldn't believe I had said those things, but I didn't regret them. They had deserved every word after years of criticism. I flew back home immediately, skipping the wedding and immersing myself in a weekend of self-care at a luxurious resort. It was a blissful escape from drama, filled with spa days, favorite shows, and new city adventures. I also decided to block my relatives to avoid any further negativity. My name is Abigail. I'm a 37-year-old woman, and my younger sister Chloe, who's 38, and I have had a strained relationship since childhood. Chloe always had a superior attitude and wasn't very kind to me. After high school, our paths diverged sharply. I pursued higher education while she chose to live with her then-boyfriend, who was financially well off, something our parents couldn't have supported her with on their own. Despite our parents' reservations about her life choices, Chloe was headstrong and didn't care for their opinions, so they eventually let her make her own decisions. Chloe had twin girls at the age of 18 and a son at 19. Though my parents were happy about the grandchildren, they were concerned about Chloe's ability to manage her new responsibilities since she had no job and relied entirely on her boyfriend's wealth. Their relationship didn't lead to marriage, which I thought was a mistake considering the financial security it would have offered her if they ever separated. Eventually, they did split after Chloe found out he was cheating. He agreed to pay child support, but chose not to be involved in the kids' lives further. When Chloe found herself alone with 4 young children and no support system, despite our rocky relationship and largely due to our parents' nudging, decided to help her. At the time, my income was modest and not enough to support them all, but with a little financial help from our parents, they managed to scrape by. Chloe struggled initially due to her lack of qualifications and experience. She had to start from scratch, which meant taking any job that would allow her to work flexible hours so she could be home with her children, making the option of a babysitter, an expensive one, unnecessary. This arrangement went on for a few years. Over time, I suspect Chloe grew resentful towards her own children, viewing them as obstacles to her career progression. She would often complain that they were holding her back. Occasionally, I visited not for her sake, but to ensure the well-being of the children. My relationship with Chloe was not warm, but I couldn't stand by and watch her children suffer because of her poor choices. Our parents and I frequently checked in on them, and it was evident from their complaints that Chloe was often harsh, punishing them for minor mistakes and lashing out at them for simply being kids and seeking enjoyment. Years later, when the children were grown, they began to appreciate my efforts and offered me money as a token of their gratitude. However, Chloe demanded that the money should be given to her instead. Her claim took me by surprise, given her previous disregard for both the financial and emotional support I had provided over the years. It was a complicated situation, reflecting our lifelong challenging relationship and differing values on family and responsibility. Living in such difficult conditions was tough for everyone involved, and I always wished I could do more to help. I wanted to rescue them from their challenging environment and have them stay with me, but legally, I couldn't intervene. The children's mother was their legal guardian, receiving child support from her ex-husband, and doing her best under tough circumstances. Despite my sympathy for her, I was even more concerned about the children. The mother, Chloe, began dating again, which only added to the chaos. Each failed relationship led her to unfairly blame her children, believing that her partners left because they didn't want to date a mother of 3. This belief stemmed from her habit of hiding the existence of her children until the relationship was a few months old, which often came off as deceitful. I tried to talk to her about this pattern, but she remained convinced that the rejections were solely because she had children. Her constant threats to abandon the kids if they misbehaved only heightened their fears. Their upbringing was marred by their mother's self-centered behavior, creating a tense and unhappy childhood. I often thought about taking them away, but there was no legal justification to do so. Despite everything, they were thankful to have me in their lives, and I provided a safe space for them as their aunt. They shared their school troubles and personal issues with me, never with their mother. Once they turned 17, they chose to move in with me, finally free to decide their own living situation. Chloe was upset, accusing me of taking over after she had done the hard work of raising them. She didn't understand that, in reality, the kids had largely raised themselves. Her life was a cycle of work and unsuccessful dates, and she was oblivious to how her actions had prioritized her needs over her children's well-being. When they left, Chloe lashed out, claiming I should have intervened earlier if I was so eager to take her place. I wanted to point out that she hadn't truly raised them. They had survived despite her, not because of her. But I chose not to stir further conflict, especially since I could see she was struggling with the reality of her situation. After that, our communication dwindled, and her children stayed with me, having chosen the stability and support I offered over the turmoil at home. Chloe decided to sever connections with all of us, including our parents, which was surprising as they had not wronged her in any way. I believe she felt slighted because they did not take her side over mine when my nieces and nephew chose to live with me, so she stopped communicating with them too. It's been 7 years since then, and everyone seems to be thriving. As for Chloe, I'm not sure what she's been up to, but her children are certainly doing well. My nephew is now a pediatrician after finishing medical school. One niece is a literature teacher following her graduation, and her twin sister owns a successful hair salon. I helped them secure business loans and provided financial support to get them started. I am immensely proud of their progress. They've come a long way from their challenging home environment. They lived with me for 4 years during college, often returning only during breaks, likely because they did not want to go back to Chloe's where they felt unwelcome. They moved out 1 year ago, and I'm thrilled to see them independent and flourishing. I never expected anything in return for my help. Helping them felt like the right thing to do. Despite the troubles with my sister, I could never turn my back on her children. I've never had children of my own, nor have I married. It just wasn't for me. However, I always wanted to be a supportive figure for them, especially in the absence of their father and with Chloe being distant. I took on a parental role they needed as my parents were too old to do so. Recently, I celebrated my 37th birthday, wonderfully organized by my nephew. Despite my insistence on paying, he covered the costs, wanting to show his gratitude now that he could afford to. At the party, my nieces and nephew expressed their thanks by giving me a check, a gesture of their appreciation, although I insisted it was unnecessary. They wanted to acknowledge not just the financial support but the encouragement and belief I provided, which they felt they could never truly repay. I shared this heartwarming moment on social media, not thinking it would reach Chloe since we hadn't spoken in years and I was blocked on all her accounts. After the children left her to live with me, a decision initiated by them due to her lack of involvement, she hadn't shown any interest in reconnecting or supporting them. I figured she had moved on with her life, but surprisingly, she responded to my post a few days later, which I hadn't anticipated. After 3 years of silence, I should have known that once my sister felt confident about her children's financial stability, she would reappear, eager to find out how she could benefit from their newfound wealth. When she contacted me, she claimed to have seen a post of mine and expressed a desire to reconnect with her children. She admitted to her past failures as a mother and expressed a desire to make amends, asserting that she had deeply missed them over the years. However, I doubted the sincerity of her words. If she truly missed them, nothing would have stopped her from reaching out sooner. She requested that I help facilitate a reunion with her children, as they tend to listen to me. The timing of her approach felt calculated, so I chose to ignore her message. When I didn't respond, she called me that evening, and I couldn't hold back my frustration. She pleaded for my help in rebuilding their relationship, but it was clear to me that her motivations were financially driven, not out of genuine concern for their well-being. Her inability to directly contact them, preferring instead to go through me, spoke volumes about her pride and ego. She still expected them to reach out to her, despite her being the one at fault. Our conversation escalated when she accused me of chasing after her children's wealth, which was absurd. I tried to stay neutral, but the obviousness of her intentions disgusted me. She even accused me of stealing her children's affection and their wealth, although I had been reluctant to accept any financial gifts from them. Now, she's turned to social media to paint me as the villain, sharing her side of the story in an attempt to garner sympathy. Some of my relatives think I've been too harsh and owe her an apology, which is ridiculous. That's why I came here, to ask if I was wrong to tell my sister that she doesn't deserve the money her children decided to give me. After some thought, I discussed the matter with my nephews and nieces. They had heard whispers from other family members, but hadn't found the time to talk to me about it. Once we sat down, they supported my actions. My nephew was particularly vocal, admitting he never really saw her as a mother figure due to her absence in his life. My nieces were too emotional to speak much, but it was clear they shared his sentiments. It seems my nephew had been harboring these feelings for a long time, and it was only a matter of time before they came to light. He explained that my sister only reached out to me because she knew I could influence them, which only confirmed my suspicions about her intentions. Despite her receiving child support, she never really did the bare minimum for her children. Instead, she would demean them and make them feel awful just for existing, which was beyond their control. They believe I made the right decision and have assured me that they will not reach out to their mother under any circumstances. They also think it's important for me to defend myself and share my perspective online, especially since Chloe has started to disparage me on social media. They see this as the best way to get our story across, so I plan to do just that. I'm relieved they're supporting me, especially since my parents prefer to remain neutral. After the children severed ties with her, Chloe never tried to reconnect with them, which I find odd. My parents' detached stance is strange to me, considering they haven't spoken to Chloe in over 3 years. I was let down by this, but I'm thankful my nieces and nephews stand by me. Many have questioned why I didn't seek custody and remove the children from Chloe's care, given her poor parenting. I explained that while her behavior was unacceptable, it didn't rise to the level of legal abuse or neglect. She was consistently harsh and emotionally distant, but pursuing custody was unlikely to succeed. Courts generally prefer to keep families together, and since they had already lost their father who abandoned them, the court would likely want to keep the children with their remaining biological parent. I was aware that if I took legal steps against Chloe, she might cut me off from the children completely and move them away. Given these circumstances, pursuing full custody seemed both unlikely and potentially harmful. So, I chose to maintain contact and be a supportive presence in their lives. It wasn't an easy choice, and for years I wrestled with whether I should have pushed for custody. However, I decided it was safer for the children to remain with their mother while keeping in touch with me and my parents. I hope this clarifies my actions for those who had questions. Perhaps some view me unfavorably for my decisions, but I am at peace knowing the children are thriving and that I did everything within my power to ensure their happiness and safety. A week has passed since Chloe's public comments, and I've received numerous calls from family and acquaintances echoing her criticisms. Despite the challenges, I remain committed to supporting the children and do not regret my choices. Recently, I've been incredibly overwhelmed with work, which is why it took me a while to share my thoughts online. However, a recent conversation with my nephew and nieces inspired me to finally tell our side of the story, which is not just mine but also reflects their experiences. Not many people understand the hardships these kids faced growing up. They were often mocked daily because their mother, Chloe, chose to start a family at a young age and abandon her other commitments for her then-boyfriend. Despite this, Chloe often played the victim, blaming others for her choices and trying to portray herself as a dedicated mother. In reality, she was rarely there for her children and falsely accused me of taking her children and her supposed fortune now that her children were financially stable. I felt it was crucial for people to hear the truth and not just Chloe's distorted version of events, where she painted herself as the wronged party. For too long, I've been judged based on her side of the story, gaining undue sympathy from others. But today, I wanted to set the record straight not just for myself, but for her children too. I spent a few hours drafting everything and published the post online. Since then, Chloe hasn't confronted me directly, but the tone of the texts from relatives who previously judged me has changed dramatically. They're now apologizing, realizing they were too quick to judge. Honestly, the apologies don't matter to me. What's important was that the truth was out there. Chloe's handling of her children is precisely why they no longer communicate with her. With this finally out in the open, I'm ready to move on. For 3 years, Chloe didn't reach out, and we were content with that. I suspect her children feel the same. In a twist, after my post, Chloe tried to retaliate by causing drama in the comments, trying to portray me as the liar. However, it backfired when her own children responded, reminding her of the times she mistreated them. This online confrontation lasted about an hour before Chloe started deleting her comments, perhaps realizing she was only incriminating herself further. Eventually, she blocked me and even her children, likely as an admission of defeat. Even after she tried to reach out privately, claiming I had made everyone see her as the monster, I ignored her. It's ironic, because that's exactly what she tried to do to me first. Some people can't handle the repercussions of their actions. My advice? Don't stir up drama if you're not prepared to face the consequences. We've decided to leave this behind us because Chloe is no longer worth our time or energy. My name is Hazel. I was labeled the midlife mistake because I was born when my parents, William and Chloe, were well into their 40s. William, a subdued middle manager, and Chloe, a relentless corporate leader, had already raised my sister, Abigail, who is 14 years my senior and was quite indifferent towards me. My unexpected arrival was a shock to my parents. At 47, my mom mistook her pregnancy symptoms for menopause. By the time she realized the truth, it was too late to consider alternatives. I was born prematurely, facing numerous health challenges right from the start. During this tough time, while my mom was engrossed in her career, my Aunt Ellie and my dad took turns watching over me. Aunt Ellie, whom I consider a saint, often spoke words of encouragement to me through my incubator glass. As I grew, my grandfather John recognized the need for more space and purchased a luxurious 4-bedroom mansion in one of Boston's finest neighborhoods. Despite its grandeur, the house felt more like a museum than a home, with its pristine condition and lack of warmth towards me. Childhood was challenging. When I was 4, I vividly remember the disappointment on my mother's face when I expressed a desire to join her on Take Your Child to Work Day. Instead, I spent the day with Aunt Ellie in her cozy painting studio, a place that felt more like home than anywhere else. Ellie not only allowed me to paint but also displayed my creations, giving me a sense of belonging. School became my refuge. I excelled academically and participated in numerous clubs, always striving to be the quiet, well-behaved child my teachers praised. They didn't know it was my escape from feeling like a burden at home. As for my sister Abigail, she rarely acknowledged my existence, except to complain about her old room being turned into my messy kid space. Despite this, my grandfather John tried to fill the emotional void left by my parents. The story takes a dramatic turn on my 16th birthday, which coincided with a significant event for Abigail, her pregnancy. My parents decided that she needed more space and support, leading to my being asked to move out. The abrupt change was challenging, but it marked the beginning of a new chapter for me, one where I began to find my own path. Years later, at Abigail's wedding, an unexpected twist of karma occurred, dramatically altering the dynamics of our family relationships. The details of that day are vivid in my memory. a reminder of how complex and intertwined our lives can be. I cherish the times my father showed genuine interest in me through various gifts and activities, yet his presence alone couldn't mend the deep-seated issues within our family. My mother's method of parenting was superficial at best. She threw money at problems, hoping they'd disappear. Whether it was paying for dance lessons or private tutoring, she never made it to my performances or school meetings, always citing some crucial business meeting that couldn't be rescheduled. Each achievement I celebrated was met with her indifferent, "That's nice, dear." And my dad wasn't much different. "Please be quiet, I'm on a call," was a common refrain from him, breaking the earlier promise he had made to my mom about being there for me. I vividly remember counting how many times he said, "Not now, Hazel," over just one weekend. 17 times. Even my 8th birthday slipped their minds. Only after a reminder from Aunt Ellie did they scramble to order an expensive cake and hastily hand me some cash. The real celebration happened the next day at Ellie's house, where she organized a small party with a homemade cake and decorations she knew I would love. As I grew older, I started to understand my situation better, piecing together the truth from overheard drunken confessions and whispered arguments. At 12, I accidentally heard my parents arguing about me. My mother, likely on her 3rd glass of wine, complained about my neediness, and my father helplessly remarked, "We can't really give her back." Following that incident, I spent much more time at Aunt Ellie's. Her modest, cozy home became my true sanctuary. She took the time to listen to my problems, assist with my homework, and teach me how to cook, filling the role of a parent. On weekends, we'd tackle creative projects, bake cookies, or simply talk about life. She cared about my dreams, fears, and future plans, things my own parents never seemed interested in. As years passed, the contrast between my life at my parents' and the warmth at Ellie's became stark. At Ellie's, I was Debbie, loved, respected, and valued. At my parents' home, I was Hazel, the misfit, the burden, the unwanted one. I learned to navigate these 3 worlds, switching between them as easily as changing TV channels. Grandpa John eventually took notice, and to ensure I had some security, my father began making deposits into a private account for me, often remarking, "Just in case." I didn't realize then how significant his foresight would be, or how unpredictable life could truly be, until my parents dropped a bombshell on me. At the age of 18, I was eagerly counting the days until I could leave for college, trying my best to navigate through the emotionally barren environment of my home. My mother, Hazel, delivered what she considered to be thrilling news in her characteristically cheerful voice. "We have some wonderful news, Abigail. Your sister is pregnant and getting married. We're going to be grandparents," she exclaimed. My dad chimed in with a grin that seemed misplaced, as if expecting me to share in their joy. I mustered a smile and responded, "That's fantastic." As my mother continued talking about the busy times ahead with wedding preparations, she seemed completely unaware of my disinterest. Their conversation drifted towards my bedroom, and suddenly, the pieces started to fall into place. Abigail and her future husband would need room for their new baby, which meant moving in with us after their wedding. It suddenly made sense why I had found a measuring tape in my room and overheard whispered discussions. Their unusual interest in my college plans wasn't just about education. They were also planning for Abigail's return. I realized that the coming weeks would mark a significant change. As I watched my parents' faces light up at the thought of the family coming together, I had no clue how profoundly these changes would affect me or how dramatically karma would soon play a role in our family dynamics. On my 16th birthday, the stark reality of my situation became clear. My Aunt Ellie made her traditional birthday pancakes and gifted me thoughtful presents like books, art supplies, and a beautifully handmade photo album filled with memories of our time together. I spent the morning with her, cherishing the calm before the storm. Grandpa John, who I had always seen as protective, seemed to have an inkling something was amiss. He gifted me the latest smartphone with a note advising me to keep it handy and document anything important. His foresight would soon prove invaluable. When I returned home to join the supposed celebration, the house was unsettlingly silent and smelled of fresh paint, a sign that something was amiss. With a sense of dread, I climbed the stairs to my room, which was unusually closed. My heart sank as I opened the door. My personal sanctuary had been transformed. The walls, once a gallery of my photos and artwork, were now painted a soft blue. A white crib replaced my bed, surrounded by teddy bears, and a rocking chair sat where my desk used to be, all fitting into a new nautical theme. Even the curtains were changed. At that moment, I heard footsteps. My parents appeared, surprised to find me recording the scene. My mother, Hazel, demanded sternly, "Why are you in here?" The video was still rolling, capturing every moment of this surreal and painful revelation. It was clear that as they prepared for Abigail's new chapter, they were turning the page on mine without a backward glance. I was still coming to terms with the erasure of my presence, barely absorbing the conversation. What's happened to my room? Where are all my things? My father nervously cleared his throat. Hazel, we've decided to give your sister's child your room because it gets the most sunlight. It's perfect for a nursery, and our first grandson deserves the best, he said, his enthusiasm something I'd never experienced myself. My mother chimed in. Abigail is having a boy, the son your father has always wanted. The news hit me like a gut punch. But where will I sleep? Where are my things? With a casual wave towards the stairs, my father replied, Oh, we've boxed up your belongings. They're in the garage. Take them with you when you leave. Leave? My voice cracked. What do you mean? I thought this was my home. My mother's forced smile faltered. Hazel, you need to understand, there's no space for you here anymore, not with Abigail and her husband moving in and the baby coming. It's time you learn to stand on your own, especially now that you're 16. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. No, I said, my voice shaking. I won't just leave. This is my home too. You can't just erase me. My mother finally snapped. For heaven's sake, Hazel, stop being so difficult. This is about family, not just about you. I am your family, I cried. I am your daughter. Today is my birthday. How could you throw me out without even remembering that? My father sighed dismissively. Is it your birthday? Is that what all this fuss is about? We don't have time for such nonsense. Their indifference was a physical blow. My mother glanced nervously at my phone, still recording as tears streamed down my face. Stop making a scene, she hissed. The neighbors might hear. Good, I retorted. Let them hear. Let everyone see who you really are. At that, my father gripped my arm tightly. That's enough, he growled, pulling me towards the door. Leave now and don't come back. With a shove, I was on the front porch, surrounded by hastily packed boxes. The door slammed with finality. I don't know how long I sat there crying, but eventually, Grandpa John's voice broke through my sobs. Are you there, Hazel, my love? I saw everything. Don't worry, we'll figure this out. For now, head over to Ellie's, okay? And be careful with that video. Ellie was already at her door when I arrived, pulling me into a comforting embrace. Despite everything, she insisted on celebrating my birthday. She ordered my favorite food, invited my closest friends, and tried her best to make the day special. But we all knew this was about more than a ruined birthday. It was about my entire life being turned upside down. That night, as I lay in Ellie's guest room, now being called my room, Grandpa John emailed me. The support was comforting, a stark contrast to the family turmoil I had just escaped. He had a meticulous plan in place, and his attorney had secured and authenticated the live stream footage. He penned a note saying, "The wedding is in 4 days. Be ready." Sometimes karma needs a little push to spring into action. I didn't grasp the full meaning of his words then, nor did I foresee the dramatic way karma was poised to strike. Aunt Ellie insisted we attend Abigail's wedding. She dressed me in a stunning blue dress she had bought for the occasion, saying, "We have every right to be there." After all, Grandpa John personally invited us. When we entered the reception, my unease grew as I saw Grandpa sitting prominently at a front table, impeccably dressed. He had kept his exact plans for me, wanting to ensure we were ready for a dose of justice. The wedding ceremony was flawless. Abigail looked radiant in her luxurious gown, and her groom seemed decent, but slightly overwhelmed by the lavishness. Throughout the event, my parents mingled, playing the perfect family, proudly sharing news of my pregnant sister and their soon-to-be grandson. I watched from a distant table, placed strategically far away in hopes we wouldn't stir trouble. The atmosphere shifted dramatically during the dinner when Grandpa John stood up. The best man, taken aback, handed him the microphone as he strode to the front. A hush fell over the room. With a composed authority that wealth and age afford, he began, "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for interrupting this joyful occasion, but a grave injustice needs to be addressed here tonight." What followed was a masterful exposition of long-hidden truths. Grandpa outlined everything from my parents' initial denial of my existence to their cruel eviction of me on my birthday. He displayed selected clips from the live stream on the reception's projection screen, revealing their true colors in vivid detail. He thundered, "These people cast out their own daughter like refuse on her 16th birthday to clear space for their new grandchild. Watch this closely." The footage unspooled, showing my father's harshness and my mother's scornful cruelty. The reactions in the room evolved from shock to horror to outrage. Several of my mother's close friends stood and left in disgust. Meanwhile, Abigail's tears smeared her makeup, and her husband's discomfort grew. Grandpa wasn't finished. When my mother, her face red with embarrassment, tried to intervene, Grandpa's voice cut through the air, cold as ice. "Let me be clear. I am revising my will. Ellie and Hazel will inherit every penny I own. Abigail, Chloe, and William, you are completely cut off. The investment accounts, the trust funds, all gone." The result was immediate pandemonium. My mother's outcry was a mix of disbelief and despair, while Abigail sobbed, fearful for her unborn child's future. The wedding, meant to be a celebration, turned into a venue for airing family grievances and a stark unveiling of long-concealed deceits. At the wedding, the atmosphere shifted dramatically when Dad's face turned a deep, alarming purple. The real shock came when several of Dad's business associates began to quietly leave the event, subtly handing their business cards to Grandpa on their way out. It seemed that both my parents had either forgotten or ignored the fact that Grandpa was not just wealthy, but also a major investor in several businesses, including Dad's company and many of Mom's key clients. As a result, Grandpa wielded considerable influence over their professional and social circles. This became evident as Mom's carefully nurtured social network began to crumble, with apologies followed by quick exits. Dad's colleagues suddenly found themselves unable to meet his gaze. Amidst this, Abigail's in-laws were caught up in a tense discussion in one corner. Things escalated when Abigail's husband abruptly stood up, needing air, and didn't return. Rumors circulated that he was now seeking divorce lawyers, unwilling to tie his future with a family embroiled in such public disgrace. What stood out in the chaos were the business cards given to Grandpa. By the end of the night, Mom's list of clients had dwindled, and Dad's workplace had lost 4 key investors. As we left, Grandpa gave me a content smile. Letting people unravel by their own deeds was, to him, the sweetest revenge. And all he had done was ensure the right audience was present. Since that night, my parents' pleas for forgiveness had escalated. They even tried to break into Ellie's home. Seeing enough was enough. I told Ellie that I wanted her to be my legal guardian, a decision that our lawyer said was nearly guaranteed to succeed given the video evidence we had. Mom and Dad's social standing and financial prospects were in ruins. Abigail, once living an idyllic life, found herself increasingly isolated by her husband's family. As karma would have it, the following day, I planned to file for a restraining order, bolstered by video evidence of Dad's assault and their emotional abuse. Our lawyer was confident we had the grounds for a civil case if needed. Grandpa John had always said karma sometimes needed a nudge, but seeing my parents' facade crumble was worth every hardship they had caused me. I was finally ready to talk about the wedding's aftermath. The court hearing for Ellie's guardianship and my restraining order was scheduled just 1 week after the wedding. My parents showed up in court, portraying themselves as the concerned, loving parents, complete with a PR consultant to help rehabilitate their image. Mom swapped her usual power suits for a concerned mother look, complete with natural makeup and modest jewelry. Dad even sported a new haircut and brought a Bible. They brought character witnesses, affluent friends ready to vouch for their parenting. However, they weren't prepared for our response. Along with the incriminating birthday video, our lawyer presented years of financial records showing how they had misused the funds Grandpa sent for my upbringing. The courtroom was stunned, as the meticulously maintained facade of my parents was stripped away, revealing the stark reality beneath. In an unforgettable moment in court, the judge, visibly shocked, watched as evidence revealed that over $510,110 had been siphoned into my parents' personal investments and my sister Abigail's trust fund. The impact was immediate and profound. The judge even paused the proceedings to ask if I wished to press criminal charges, particularly after seeing the distressing footage of my father forcefully removing me from my home. I declined, finding it painful enough to witness the unraveling of their lives. The judge was resolute, directing the case to the district attorney for further scrutiny. My parents faced devastating consequences. They were stripped of their guardianship and ordered to repay my sister Ellie for all the funds embezzled from her, including interest. Moreover, they were served with a restraining order to stay at least 710 feet away from both Ellie and me. This was just the beginning of their downfall. The repercussions extended beyond legal boundaries. Once prestigious, my father's company conducted an internal audit that uncovered questionable decisions, leading to his demotion to a minor role with no real power or client interactions, a far cry from his former executive office. Similarly, my mother's career crumbled. Known for her ruthless business acumen, her reputation soured after footage of her evicting me went viral. She found herself demoted to a cubicle, reporting to someone who was once a junior colleague. Their social standing disintegrated as swiftly as their professional lives. After the scandal was publicly aired at a board meeting, their country club membership was revoked. Friends avoided them, and their church asked them to step down from all committee roles. Within a month, the social facade they had meticulously built over decades was destroyed. Abigail's life also took a turn for the worse. Merely 1 week after her wedding, her husband sought a divorce, citing deceit about the family's integrity. Now living with our parents, Abigail traded her stylish maternity wear for department store alternatives, her dreams of a suburban life crumbling as she returned to her childhood bedroom, now shared with her unborn child. Financially, the fallout was severe. Grandpa John had wisely moved most of his assets into an irrevocable trust for Ellie and me, effectively out of my parents' reach. They were even served eviction notices from their home, owned by one of Grandpa's companies. As investigations into the embezzled funds continued, their financial portfolios were frozen. In a desperate bid to salvage their situation, my parents tried various tactics, from undergoing therapy and issuing heartfelt apologies to more dubious actions like bribing neighbors for information. Their lawyer approached me last week, hinting at forgiveness if I could sway Grandpa to reconsider their inheritance. Meanwhile, life has taken a surprisingly positive turn for me. I now live in what feels like a true home for the first time. Ellie and I have made it our own, decorating my room in my favorite colors, hanging my artwork, and even setting up a cozy reading nook adorned with fairy lights by the window. Grandpa John's actions have not only secured my future, but have also provided me with a sense of belonging and stability that I've never experienced before. I've managed to set up a significant college fund and have been thrilled to receive multiple acceptance letters for the upcoming fall semester at various universities. I've chosen to pursue a degree in psychology, specializing in family trauma therapy, a field I feel equipped to handle given my personal experiences. In addition to my academic pursuits, I've started volunteering at a local youth shelter. Here, I help other teenagers from challenging home environments navigate their situations, drawing on my own journey for insight. The support I've received has been overwhelming. It's clear that my story resonates with many who find themselves in similar circumstances. To broaden this impact, I've launched a blog to document my healing journey, joined support groups, and made new friends who understand what I've been through. The daily messages of solidarity and hope from others enduring similar challenges inspire me, reinforcing my belief that we can transform our pain into something profoundly transformative. Recently, my parents attempted to reconnect through a formal letter from their lawyer, threatening to sue me for defamation unless I retract what they claim are false accusations. Our lawyer was amused by the letter, reminding them that we have video evidence and that truth is a defense against defamation. Reflecting on the past 3 months, I've realized that sometimes the family you're born into isn't the one you're meant to stay with. I've learned what unconditional, encouraging, and respectful love looks like from my foster family, Ellie and Grandpa John, who have shown me nothing but kindness. To everyone who has supported me, your messages, advice, and shared experiences have been invaluable. The Reddit community, in particular, has been a surprising fountain of knowledge and support, empowering me to stand up for myself and demand the basic respect everyone deserves. For those still in toxic family situations, remember, create a support network, document everything, and never forget that you deserve better. Blood relations do not justify poor treatment. Having legally changed my identity, I now have a real home and the freedom to shape my own future as I enter college this fall. To my parents who may be reading this, I hope you realize what you've lost, not just a daughter, but so much more, all for the sake of maintaining an image. To everyone following my journey towards freedom, thank you for your support. As the morning sun gently bathed Hazel's spacious apartment in Augusta, it highlighted her focused expression. Hazel, halfway through her morning routine, paused for a sip of coffee while mentally organizing her day. As a financial analyst for a prominent corporation, she maintained a strict schedule. Suddenly, her son David's voice disrupted the quiet. "Mom, I can't get my tie right," he called from his bedroom. With a warm smile, Hazel set her coffee down and went to help her 8-year-old. David, with his blue eyes and brown hair, strikingly resembled his father, William, who had tragically passed away 3 years earlier. Although the resemblance sometimes stirred painful memories, it also brought Hazel comfort. In David's room, she knelt and adjusted his tie, teaching him patiently. "Watch carefully," she instructed, her fingers deftly working the fabric. David watched intently, his expression serious. He was a bright child, inheriting his father's intellect and his mother's practicality. "Grandma said she'd call today," David mentioned. "She said something special is happening." Hazel paused, knowing all too well that special, in her mother Ellie's terms, usually hinted at her grand plans to uphold her social status. Ever since William's death, Ellie had been overly concerned with appearances and societal expectations. Something like that, Hazel responded nonchalantly as she finished tying the tie. "They're perfect. Let's have breakfast quickly." As they headed to the kitchen, Hazel's phone rang. It was her sister, Mia, whose voice buzzed with excitement. Mia, always the social butterfly, had a penchant for luxury and rarely settled in any job for long. Hazel was taken aback. A cruise? How? Their mother lived modestly on a pension and occasional support from her ex-husband. "Mom's friend at the travel agency got us a special family discount," Mia explained. Hazel leaned against the counter, pondering. The logistics of adjusting her work and pulling David out of school were daunting. Yet, her family had supported her through William's passing, albeit superficially, and she felt a sense of obligation. "When is it?" Hazel asked. "Next week." "Short notice, I know, but we can't miss this, right?" Mia pressed. Hazel considered her recent efforts to reconnect with William's parents, Hudson and Mila, for David's sake. "I'll think about it. I'll decide after I talk to Mom about the details," she responded. Mia sighed. "You're always like that, planning everything. Sometimes you just have to go with the flow." After hanging up, Hazel shook her head. Her sister's impulsive nature was the polar opposite of her own careful planning, especially when it came to decisions affecting David's future. As David bounded into the kitchen, his excitement palpable, he asked, "Was that Grandma calling about the cruise?" "No, that was your Aunt Mia. Grandma and her planning a cruise."
Wow.
Are we going? David's face lit up with anticipation. Hazel looked at her son, his joy a stark contrast to the life of caution they had led since William's death. David's happiness was her priority, and perhaps, she thought, it was time to balance her diligent planning with a bit of spontaneous joy. Maybe, she smiled, considering the possibility for the first time in a long while. Hazel hesitated, stating she needed to check her work schedule before committing to any plans, yet deep inside, she was already leaning towards saying yes. Family time was a treasure to her, and Ellie and Mia, her mother and sister, were her family, or so she believed. As she looked out the window at the expansive bay stretching past the city's towering skyscrapers, a faint sense of caution nagged at her, but she dismissed it, focusing instead on the joyous prospect of making memories with her son. "I'm really glad you could join us," Ellie said warmly, resting a hand on Hazel's shoulder as they stood at the bustling port of Augusta. The morning sun illuminated the Ocean Princess, a majestic cruise liner docked nearby, its brilliant white hull shining against the clear blue sky. Hazel smiled, touched by her mother's effort. "I can't believe you organized this amazing trip, Mom. Everyone needs a break now and then," Ellie replied, her designer sunglasses and vibrant hat making her the center of attention. Mia, clad in a striking summer dress, was busy capturing the perfect selfie against a picturesque backdrop. "Just imagine the likes this will get on Instagram," she chuckled, excitement in her voice. Nearby, Hazel's son David was wide-eyed with amazement. "Mom, is there really a pool on the ship?" he asked, looking up at the towering vessel. "Absolutely," Ellie replied nonchalantly, already scanning the crowd, her gaze lingering on some of the male passengers. Hazel, wrapping an arm around David, explained about the ship's amenities, including a pool, a cinema, and special activity rooms for kids. Taking time off for this trip wasn't easy, especially allowing David to miss school, but seeing his thrilled face made it all seem worthwhile. "It's time to start the boarding process," Ellie announced after a brief, secretive conversation with Mia. Hazel, feeling a twinge of nervousness, checked if they had everything. "Passports?" she inquired. "Oh, Hazel, you worry too much. Just enjoy the moment," Mia responded with an eye roll as they approached the boarding counter. The uniformed staff greeted them with bright smiles. "Good morning. May I have your reservation number?" Ellie confidently handed over the booking confirmation for the Wilson party. While the staff verified their details, Hazel glanced around, seeing other excited families and children. David clutched her hand, barely containing his excitement. However, confusion clouded the staff member's face. "I can't seem to find a reservation for David Wilson. My son's name isn't listed?" Hazel's voice faltered as the attendant rechecked the computer. "I'm sorry, but this reservation is only for 4. Confused, Hazel turned to Ellie, who hesitated but quickly masked it with a smile. "Oh, there's been a mix-up. This deal was for adults only. Children cost extra." Mia chimed in, seemingly unaffected. "Thanks for the lift, Hazel. You saved us the cab fare." Stunned, Hazel processed her sister's words. Ellie appeared slightly uncomfortable, while Mia looked almost proud. Hazel's heart sank as the reality of their intentions dawned on her. David, sensing something was wrong, tugged at her hand. "Mom, am I not part of the family?" His blue eyes filled with tears. Facing her mother and sister, Hazel saw them in a new light. Overwhelmed by feelings of anger and betrayal, she struggled to find words. Ellie, glancing irritably at her watch, urged, "Decide quickly. Boarding time is near. David can wait at the Port Cafe, or he can find his way back home. He's old enough to stay by himself, isn't he?" Mia suggested coldly. Around them, happy families boarded the ship, while Hazel held David's trembling hand. His attempt to stifle his tears broke her heart further, contrasting sharply with the warmth and joy surrounding them. In that moment, the stark reality of her family's cold calculation became painfully clear. In a moment of confusion and irritation, Ellie's impatience was evident as she scolded Hazel, urging her to prioritize her own needs over her dedication to her son. Taking a deep breath, Hazel held her son's hand tightly and began to walk away. Behind her, Ellie's voice rang out, questioning Hazel's decision to pass up such an opportunity. Without turning back, Hazel's thoughts shifted to her parents-in-law, William's parents, as a beacon of solace. Meanwhile, Mia, resigned to Hazel's stubborn nature, remarked to the others that they would enjoy themselves without her. Hazel glanced at her son, David, who looked puzzled yet stayed loyally by her side. When he inquired about their destination, Hazel gently explained they were visiting his grandparents, igniting a hopeful spark in David's eyes. Although he asked about the cruise, Hazel reassured him, wrapping an arm around him, suggesting that sometimes unplanned journeys lead to the most memorable adventures. As they approached the car, the weight of her family's betrayal pained Hazel, yet she felt an unexpected relief in recognizing their true characters. With their bags packed for the cruise now repurposed for a different journey, Hazel reassured David, seeing trust in his eyes. As she started the car and left the harbor, the sight of the departing cruise ship became a symbol of her distancing herself from her mother and sister. However, Hazel's spirits were lifted by the warm sunshine and the welcoming home of Hudson and Mila. At Hudson and Mila's house, the atmosphere was cheerful. Hudson, a sharp-witted retired lawyer, delighted in pushing David on the swing, each sore bringing him joy in seeing his grandson's resemblance to his late son, Mila. Mila, fixing her silver hair, watched them from the porch, her heart heavy with the memory of her son but lightened by the bond forming with David. When she announced that lemonade was ready, David eagerly called for a pause to their play, and they all headed inside. Inside, Hazel helped Mila in the kitchen and observed the genuine happiness David found there. Grateful for the warm reception following their abrupt change of plans, Hazel felt comforted by Hudson and Mila's outrage not at her, but at Ellie and Mia's selfishness. Hudson even hinted at starting some legal investigations concerning Ellie and Mia, showing his protective nature. Despite the potential for familial tension, Mila redirected the conversation to the plans for a serene vacation on the Santa Cruz coast, envisioning joy for David by the ocean. This support underscored the true meaning of family for Hazel, unconditional love and a sanctuary in times of need. As the doorbell rang, Hazel felt a mix of anticipation and nerves, illustrating the new chapter they were beginning, away from past grievances and towards a hopeful future. Hazel was taken aback when her father, John, unexpectedly reached out after months of silence. Despite their strained relationship due to his continuous financial support to her mother Ellie, even post-divorce, John's presence was a reminder of the underlying tensions. John, known for his reserved nature and difficulty in expressing emotions, had a serious conversation with Hazel about halting financial aid to Ellie. He explained that Ellie had grown too dependent and arrogant because of the support, and it was time for a change, especially since she had hurt Hazel and her son David in the process. Meanwhile, Hazel's uncle Hudson, who had previously built a respectful relationship with John, welcomed him warmly. As the family gathered, discussions about Ellie's lavish spending habits and her recent cruise intended for mingling with affluent seniors surfaced, hinting at her ulterior motives which seemed to be failing. In the midst of family bonding, Hazel's peace was disrupted by urgent calls and a desperate message from her sister Mia, pleading for help from trouble encountered on the cruise. With mixed feelings of betrayal and familial love, Hazel wrestled with the decision to respond. Hudson, sitting by her side, provided a comforting presence, suggesting that while family ties are unchosen, the manner of handling them remained in her hands. The situation escalated when Hazel decided to confront the issue head-on, planning a meeting with Mia and Ellie in Augusta. As they prepared to face the family crisis together, Hazel's resolve to teach her son David about dealing with family complexities solidified, despite the challenges that awaited. Hazel's reunion with Ellie and Mia was a poignant moment, stripped of their usual veneer. The visible distress and absence of their flamboyant attire marked their downfall. As Ellie's voice cracked with emotion, thanking Hazel for the chance to reconcile, the scene was set for a difficult yet necessary family dialogue, hinting at the possibility of mending ties and moving forward together. Hazel greeted Ellie and Mia quietly as they entered her home. They hesitated briefly upon seeing Hudson and Mila in the living room, but quickly composed themselves. Hazel calmly invited them to sit down on the sofa. Mia's expression changed to one of regret as she looked at David, who avoided her gaze and subconsciously held Hazel's hand. Ellie began, her voice breaking. "First, I want to apologize. What we did is truly inexcusable." Mia nodded in agreement, her voice shaky. "We were selfish, especially me," she added, her words heavy with emotion. Hazel listened intently, evaluating their remorse. It seemed sincere, but she wondered if it stemmed from their current predicament rather than genuine reflection. "What situation are you in now?"
Hazel asked.
"I can't pay my rent," Ellie confessed, her tone frank. "Without John's support, my savings are nearly gone. After what happened on the cruise, my reputation has suffered." Hazel nodded, recalling the incident. "I heard about the commotion with the captain," she said. Ellie looked down, embarrassed. "I acted inappropriately toward someone. Mom got too drunk and caused a scene in the ship's VIP lounge," Mia added, providing more details. Mia continued. "After that, other passengers avoided us." Turning to Mia, Hazel asked, "And you?" Mia hesitated before responding. "I maxed out my credit card, lost my job, and fell behind on rent." Hazel took a moment to choose her words carefully. "What do you want from us?" "A temporary place to stay, and a little help," Ellie said tentatively. "Just until we get back on our feet." A silence settled over the room until Hudson cleared his throat, signaling his desire to speak. "Legally speaking," he began quietly, "Ellie and Mia's actions might have elements of fraud if they lured you and David to the port under false pretenses." Mila added, "And from a psychological perspective, the emotional toll on David has been significant." The room fell silent as Ellie and Mia looked down, lost for words. Then, unexpectedly, David spoke up. "I want to forgive them," he said, standing and taking a deep breath for courage. "Everyone makes mistakes. I was angry when I lost my dad and hurt my friends, but my teacher forgave me. He taught me that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." Hazel watched her son, a mix of surprise and pride in her eyes. Ellie reached out towards David but hesitated. "I haven't been the grandmother you deserve," she admitted. Hazel took a deep breath. "I can't give an immediate answer," she said slowly. "But David's willingness to forgive is powerful. Complete forgiveness is difficult, but I will consider offering conditional help." Hudson and Mila nodded, understanding the complex path of forgiveness, having experienced it themselves after William's accident. "I'll give you a year," Hazel continued. "In that time, I want to see real efforts towards independence and repairing our relationship." Hope flickered in Ellie and Mia's eyes. "What are the conditions?" Mia asked timidly. "Both of you will receive vocational counseling and create a debt repayment plan," Hazel outlined. "I'll provide some financial support, but it won't be unlimited. Most importantly," she looked towards David, "you need to become a real family for him. That's earned, not given." Ellie and Mia nodded, their expressions now reflecting genuine regret and resolve. "I promise," Mia said. "Thank you for this opportunity." Hazel remained cautious but hopeful. Family ties can be mended, sometimes emerging even stronger, she thought. David then stood and approached Ellie and Mia. "Can we all have dinner together?" he asked. "Mom's lasagna is really good." Hazel smiled as a gentle warmth spread through the room, signaling a new beginning. Hazel felt the heavy atmosphere of the room lighten, though she understood that true reconciliation was still far off. Rebuilding trust would take time, but today marked a hopeful step forward. For months later, in Augusta, the autumn sun cast a golden hue over the cityscape. From her office window, Hazel reflected on the transformations that had unfolded in recent months. Her train of thought was interrupted by the ring of the telephone. "It's your mother," her secretary announced. "Thank you. Please put her through," Hazel responded, taking a deep breath. Ellie's voice, now stripped of its previous haughtiness, came through. "Can I attend David's baseball game this afternoon?" "Of course, Mom," Hazel replied with a smile, planning to leave work early. Ellie had started volunteering at a local senior center, a commitment that began as mandatory community service but had grown into a meaningful part of her life. Her interactions with the elderly, many of whom were less fortunate, were slowly reshaping her worldview. After ending the call, Hazel received a text from Mia. "Want to go shopping for David's birthday present together? Do you have time this Saturday?" Mia had also undergone changes. She had enrolled in a vocational training program and secured an internship at a small payroll independently, a significant step since Hazel hadn't arranged it. Mia's spending habits were still a work in progress, but she was committed to her debt repayment plan. Weekend dinners at Hazel's had become a cherished tradition, occasionally joined by William's parents. Although Ellie's tendency to gossip and Mia's penchant for luxury brands sometimes reemerged, the family dynamics were gradually improving. David, now 9, was flourishing. The challenges of the past had fostered in him a newfound confidence and empathy. At his baseball game later that day, they celebrated with a picnic in the park. Mila opened a photo album, revealing a picture of William as a child. "He looks just like David," Ellie observed, staring at the photo and seeing her late son-in-law's likeness in her grandson. "I might have been denying it all along." Hudson joined her, beer in hand. "People can change." "Well, they're always changing." "Yes," Ellie agreed softly. "In my case, the change for the better came too late. But it's never too late," Hazel added, joining the conversation. "What matters is the path we choose to take from here." As the adults talked, David grew restless and ran off to play with other kids. Watching him play in the fading light of sunset, Hazel's heart filled with warmth. The definition of family had evolved for her. It was no longer just about blood ties, but about mutual support, promoting growth, and sometimes tough love. Above all, David had taught her about the power of forgiveness and the promise of new beginnings.